of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with justice for all. I'll now call the roll. Councilor Naomi Zabit.
Present.
Councilor Judith Garcia.
Present.
Councilor Todd Taylor. Here. Councilor Giovanni Recupero. Here. Councilor Leo Robinson. Here. Councilor Calvin Brown. Here. Councilor Damali Vido. Sorry. Yep. Councilor Melinda Maldonado. Councilor Yamir Rodriguez. Here. There's three of you. Councilor Roy Reginald is present. Councilor Enyo Lopez. Here. 11 present, none absent. All stars.
I'm here.
Okay. We are now opening the public hearing for the FY21 proposed budget. Any member of the public wishing to comment on FY21 must be communicated via email. Your comments will be sent to or submitted or read during the meeting. I have a communication here from the Catherine Walker, Marston Mills, 92 Huckleberry Lane, Marston Mills. To the members of the Chelsea City Council, my name is Catherine and I am a resident of Barnstable, Mass. In light of the events that have occurred, including but not limited to the murders of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor, I demand to see a reduction of funding for the Chelsea Police Department. Rather than invest in a system that has been founded on racist principles and has perpetuated the unnecessary deaths of so many Black people nationwide, I suggest we reallocate money towards building up and supporting the Black and brown communities that make Chelsea the city it is. The 2020 fiscal budget is planning to allocate over $12 million to the Chelsea Police Department. I believe this money could have greater use being invested in education, healthcare, and countless other social programs at the benefit of Chelsea's Black and brown communities. The Chelsea City Council must take a stand for racial justice by significantly defunding police. Lip service isn't enough. Racist police violence just doesn't happen in other cities, it happens here in Chelsea too. However, with action, we can create change. City Council must stop investing so large sums of money into a system created to perpetuate racism and discrimination and fund what Black and brown communities need to be safe and healthy. COVID-19 relief, housing, healthcare, treatment, healing, cooperative businesses, community centers, community-led organizations, and projects. What is the will of the City Council?
Accept the 5 medication.
Thank you. Our next segment, anyone else? I don't think, I'm sorry, I don't think that we have any other communications in regards to the the FY21 proposed budget. So at this time, I will close the public hearing portion of the budget. Item number 4, memorials and celebratory resolutions. We have a celebratory resolution in regards to Anthony and Donna Bongiovanni, 50th wedding anniversary, introduced by Councilor Roy Avellaneda and Councilor Damali Vido. Whereas Anna and Donna Bongiovanni celebrated their 50th wedding anniversary on Sunday, June 28th and June 20th. And whereas Mr. and Mrs. Bongiovanni are longtime Chelsea residents with a resident at 46 Galooly Road. And whereas Mr. and Mrs. Bongiovanni have 2 children, Gino and Roseanne Bongiovanni, and their spouses, Alicia Bongiovanni and Sandro Figueroa. The couple have 5 grandchildren, Emma, Olivia, Anthony, Luca, and Louisa. Donna and Anthony are active in Chelsea and as members of the 3-time Bocce League champions of Chelsea, the Senior Center Bowling League, the Golf League, and are poll workers for election days. Donna's grandparents, Rita and John, came from Italy to Chelsea and opened up Rita's Flower Shop, a convenience store at 416 Crescent Ave, and were active and engaged property owners. Rita campaigned in Chelsea for John F. Kennedy's presidency and was recognized by the president for her volunteerism and activism. Donna is retired from the Medical Records Department at Lawrence Memorial Hospital. Anthony came from Marcella, Sicily, one of 7 children, quickly learning English, attending Northeastern University, and working hard from his childhood all the way throughout his retirement from Bank of America just a few years ago. Donna and Anthony were married at St. Anthony's Church in Revere on June 28, 1970, and they renewed their vows at St. Anthony's on their 50th anniversary. Now, therefore, be it resolved, the Councilor Roy Avellaneda and Councilor Damali Vido and all members of the City Council congratulates Mr. and Mrs. Bongiovanni on their 50th wedding anniversary and wishes them many more years of happiness, health, and well wishes. Councilor Vido.
You're on mute.
Well, hold on one second. We need you to unmute you. Wait for Fatima to unmute you.
Oh, she's not. We can bring her.
Can she unmute herself?
No? Okay. Any other councilors who'd like to speak on it? Councilor Judith Garcia.
Well, I would say congratulations to you both.
Thank you,
and
Judy.
what a wonderful, wonderful story of love that you've shared with us, especially during this time where all of our communities need hope and love. Personally, I haven't met the love of my life, but I hope that the day I do,
You will.
I can meet someone as special as you two have been for each other. Thank you so much for everything you've done for this community, for your activism, for your engagement in the city, and for really expressing that love to all of us, which now brings so much hope to us. So congratulations.
Thank you so much.
And I hope you have 50 more years of love to share.
Thank you, thank
Well, that
you.
will be a miracle.
Councilor Recupero. Councilor Recupero.
Congratulations on your 50 years.
Thank you.
And both of you did a great job. And I like both of what your husband embodies what an immigrant can do. He came from a different world and contributed a lot to this nation. So people like him and all immigrants, they come from different places. That's what makes our nation great. And here's a living proof over someone that comes from a different place.
Thank you so much.
Congratulations and 50 more.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Councilor Brown.
Thank you. Congratulations, Mr. and Mrs. Giovanni. I mean, not Giovanni, Bongiovanni. You know, we always see this family around. Their daughter was a leader of the city and still is a leader of the city. And her advocacy here in the city of Chelsea with Green Roots. But beyond that, her dad and her mom has always stood beside her on what she was advocating for. But on this celebration of this 50th anniversary, Tony, I want to just congratulate you guys. I know it's been struggle because 50 days with a loved one is a tough thing, but 50 years of marriages, you guys have succeeded. You guys have stayed together and made compliments of one another. And I'm sure that's how you stayed together all those years of the beautiful memories that you may have. I just continue to wish God's blessings upon you and wish you many, many, many more anniversaries. I don't want to say I'm going to wish you another 50th anniversary, but if it's God's will, it's God's will, and it shows you what a remarkable couple you are. And congratulations on your silver 50th year anniversary.
Thank you, Calvin. Thank you so much.
Councilor Vido, are you?
Can you hear me?
We can.
Yay, all right, good. And I'll be brief. I just wanted to congratulate the Bongiovannis on 50 years of marriage. In this day and age where there's such a shortage of love, it's so nice to see a couple that has withstood the test of time. Thank you for the way that you show up in this community. Thank you for sharing Roseanne and your grandchildren with us. We're all in this together, and I'm honored to know you guys. And congratulations, and I hope you have a magnificent, magnificent celebration of your anniversary and love for one another.
Thank you, Damali. Thank you so much.
Councilor Robinson.
I'll be brief on this. Congratulations. I remember the flower shop and thanks to go watch your brother, Gypsy Joe Russell.
My uncle.
Your uncle.
Yes, my mother's brother, yes. Yeah, thank you so much.
That's, yeah.
Yeah, it was wonderful, wonderful memories in that store.
again, congratulations on 50 years.
Thank you.
Wonderful achievement. I know that, relationships are hard. So to be able to keep the family unit like you have shown and be an example is wonderful. But, this also spoke about not just having a strong family unit, but also participating the way you both have in the community. And it showed up with, again, it passed on to your daughter and also your son who served
Yes,
this
it
country.
did.
Yeah.
So again, we thank you for being such an example, not only in the family structure, but civically too. And I think that, we all hope everyone can strive to that sort of example. So thank you very much.
Thank you, thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, we appreciate it.
Oh, I'm sorry. Councilor Todd Taylor.
So I'll make this very brief, but anybody who's married 50 years deserves a lot of credit. So, it takes, because, it's not all love and roses. I mean, sometimes, things get rough and it takes a lot of hard work to get through stuff. So congratulations from the bottom of my heart, and I wish you very many more.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Imagine if it was all perfect, it would be so boring.
Yeah.
So I mean, you have to go through the good and the bad and whatever, but we did make it. We're in the hands of God. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Ron. Bye, everybody. Thank you, Roy. Thank you so much.
We have a celebratory resolution regards to all DPW workers and their Commissioner Fidel Maltez for their dedication and hard work. Introduced by Councilor Recupero, and it states, the City of Chelsea recognizes the Department of Public Works for their effort and hard work during COVID-19, and that the City of Chelsea thank all the workers in the Department of Public Works and the Commissioner Fidel Maltez.
Don't have to say anything, correct?
Be careful.
What is the, your wish?
During
What
COVID-19,
is the motion? Motion
motion to adopt.
on the suspension. Okay, motion to adopt on the suspension.
I'd like to speak on it.
You may speak on it.
During COVID-19, all the city hall was closed, everything was closed, except DPW. They were out there in the middle of everything. They were there working very hard. And it's a good thing for all of us to recognize that they worked hard. When nobody else was there, they were there, no matter what it was. So it's a great thing and it's very well deserved.
Councilor Judith Garcia.
Thank you, and thank you, Councilor Recupero, for really highlighting the efforts of the Department of Public Works. And Fidel, I don't even know what to say to you without getting emotional, because this pandemic was so difficult for so many people, and you were there constantly giving food out and all of your workers. I cannot even imagine, like, the days, the lines, the weather, rain or shine, you guys were there with smiling faces, and even though you were under so much stress, you were always willing to answer as many questions. You were pulled in so many directions. Your team was pulled in so many directions, and everyone was hands on deck to make this possible. Not only during the highest peak of the pandemic, but also currently, you guys are still working, and you're going above and beyond your job and your effort. I'm speaking for you. I'm speaking on behalf of your team. And including your wife. I know your wife was also a part of many of these efforts, and it's so important to say that we are seeing a decrease in the numbers of confirmed cases, and I cannot say that this was done by one single person. It was done by so many people in this community. Some folks who were on the back end that we're probably never going to see their faces, as we did see your face and the faces of DPW, but you guys were incredible. The community is so grateful for everything that you did during working hours and even at nighttime. So I got emotional. So congratulations and congratulations to your team. You guys are profoundly special to us, at least for me as well.
Councilor Vidal.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to make sure that I thank Fidel. I know just the way I echoed Judith's sentiments and getting emotional, because I just saw the way that people really pulled together. And not only were you out there at the front lines, but you were also translating messages in English and Spanish, and you were making sure that the message was accessible to everybody in our community. Your men, which one of them is my man, my husband, was also there, and instead of doing what they normally do, they were bagging up rice, they were helping out. And the way that you guys showed up is a testament to the leadership in your department. I know that there were other people involved, including the planning department and the city manager's office that really came through for that. But I mean, you were the head honcho out there. And so I just really want to tip off my hat to you, especially knowing that Maria Belen was always coming, your wife as well was coming out to translate with the city manager on Mondays, and that you were, you know, essentially putting your two young daughters at risk. And so I just want to shout out Maya and Ana Victoria, because I recognize that you are a family man and that you don't do this just because it's your job, but because you believe in community and you embody that at home and outside. So just thank you for what you do. I appreciate you, and it's an honor to have you in this position. Thank you. And to all your men.
Councilor Brown.
Thank you. I just want to echo that. Fidel, your family, you guys did a tremendous job, but I want to really thank Tom, our city manager, for pointing him out to us and bringing him on, give him that opportunity to do what he did during this pandemic, COVID-19. Whether you drove by City Hall or whether you were down at the distribution center, he was there. He was working the line. He wasn't there to be in the paper. He wasn't there to be in everyone's face, but he was there to help them out and coordinate the efforts. I really want to thank you, and not only yourself. Like, I thank Tom for bringing you in, but I thank you, Fidel, for the men and women that you had under you that was willing to do all these things that we asked them to do in these very difficult times. I mean, it was the reason to justify not to do it was there. But all your men, they showed up. They knew what they were dealing with, the Crowdy, the Rudy crowd, people that was there day in and day out, but they never said no to anyone. They really did what the job exemplified of them to do, to pass out the help, not only the food distribution, but also you also kept maintaining the works of the city. I know I called you a few things, whether it was trash or whether there was a barrel that blew over because it was a windy day and people on Admiral's Hill was complaining about the plastic in the trash. You also dispatched your workers to go there. So you didn't lack on that job, but you also did a great job with the other projects Tom entrusted you into doing, and we really appreciate it, brother. And I hope this resolution shows you that we care. Thank you.
Councilor Taylor.
So I just want to say also that I think you've done an incredible job. And I'm not surprised by the job that you did during COVID, even though, you know, I got the firsthand opportunity to see you in action, and it's incredible. But what I want to get across to everybody is that good leadership is so important when you're running an organization, and it's apparent that your leadership has really trickled down to your folks, and I really want to thank you for that. And I got to see how hard you worked, whether it was helping with the food distribution when you were everywhere, and you were on Facebook, and you were kind of doing everything. So I really do appreciate that. Good leadership is really difficult to find, and Chelsea is very lucky to have you, and I mean that from the bottom of my heart. I feel like when you have somebody of quality, you keep them. And so I hope we can keep you for a long time.
Councilor Robinson.
I just want to say thanks for all that you did during these times, and continue doing what you're doing. Thanks.
Councilor Rodriguez.
I just want to also thank Fidel and his team. Chelsea just looks different. It smells better since came on board, and I just want to thank you and your team for that. Especially the hiring. I think that's one of the best part of your team, because your team is out there talking to the community, saying hi, cleaning areas they're not supposed to clean, they don't care. They just want a better Chelsea, and I think they've been doing an amazing job. Thank you.
Any other councilors? Seeing none? Thank you. We now have the public speaking portion. I don't think we have anybody in the audience. Moving on to approval of the minutes. Do we have a approval of the minutes from the last meeting? Nothing present.
No, nothing present.
Item 7, communications. We have a communication received from City Manager Tom Ambrosino regards to a resolution request for park grant Mace Hotline. Is there a motion on the communication?
I'll make a motion to accept and file communication on the suspension. There are no objections.
I believe there will be an order coming up under new business.
Not at this time. This is just acknowledgement to go after the grant.
It's a resolution.
There's a resolution that is, will be coming up on.
Okay.
We have a notice of residency waivers for DPW employees for Demis Garcias and Kevin Chavez. Yeah, councilors, I'm writing to notify you of my intention to grant residency waivers to 2 current DPW employees, both are long-term Chelsea residents who are moving out of the city. Mr. Demis Garcia is moving to 20 Estes Street, Saugus, and Mr. Kevin Chavez is moving to 14B Linden Street, Medford. Both are valued members of the DPW whom we wish to retain. Supporting member from the DPW Public Works Commissioner is attached. In accordance to the Administrative Code, Part 4, Section 11202, I request that you provide me with any comments of these proposed waivers within 7 days.
Accept and file communication.
Motion to accept and file under suspension. All right, moving on, we have second readings. We have an order introduced by Councilor Brown that introduced that in regards to city manager, instructed director of public works, paint the crosswalks at the following locations: Williams and Spruce Street, Boatman and Beacon, Spruce Street and 2nd Street. Councilor Brown?
Accept and file a motion, Mr. President. It's
On the
already been
suspension?
done.
There's an amendment to it.
Yeah,
No, we
I
made
read
the amendment.
I read the
That's the
amendment.
amended version.
Yeah, so, passage under suspension?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Okay, moving on, we have the order introduced by Council Robertson, appropriation FY20, community preservation operating budget. The second reading, this is the order to transfer $77,588 to each of those 3 amounts, 10% of estimated revenues to the 3 different sections of the CPA. 1, open space; 2, rehab or restorative resources; and 3rd is the creation, preservation, support of community housing. In addition to that, $504,319 is, or 65%, is going to the budgeted reserve account. Additionally, is an amount of 5% or $38,793 of CPA money for administrative expenses. Counselor, what is the wish?
Ask for a roll call vote on the adoption.
Counselor Robinson asks for a roll call vote on the allocation of the CPA funding. Anyone want to speak on this matter? Seeing none, and I'll call roll. Councilor Naomi Zabit.
Yes.
Councilor Judith Garcia.
Yes.
Councilor Todd Taylor.
Yes.
Councilor Giovanni Recupero.
Yes.
Councilor Leo Robinson.
Yes.
Councilor Calvin Brown.
Yes.
Councilor Damali Vido.
Yes.
Councilor Melinda Vega Maldonado.
Yes.
Councilor Yamir Rodriguez.
Yes.
Councilor Roy Avellaneda votes yes. Councilor Enyo Lopez. Yes. 11 in favor, none against. Motion passes. We have Order introduced by Council Robinson, second reading.
Actually, there are nine salary reserve orders. If we can bundle them, for one vote, if you could just read, where they're coming from.
All right, there's a request by Councilor Robinson that we put together the salary reserve accounts orders, which would be item 20, F69, F70, F71, F72, F73, F74,
75
75, 76,
and 77.
and 77. The amounts will be salary reserve account transfer of 18,500, 1,500, $350, $75, $711, 21,000, 6,140, 135, and then 17,843. Are there any objections to voting for these all together? Seeing none. Councilor Robinson, would you like to say anything?
No, if it's self-explanatory, I'd ask for a roll call vote on the adoption.
Okay. A yes vote will adopt all 9 orders for the transfer of the reserve accounts in the amounts previously stated. Councilor Naomi Zabit.
Yes.
Councilor Judith Garcia.
Yes.
Councilor Todd Taylor.
Yes.
Councilor Giovanni Recupero.
Yes.
Councilor Leo Robinson.
Yes.
Councilor Calvin Brown.
Yes.
Councilor Damali Vido.
Yes.
Councilor Melinda Maldonado.
Yes.
Councilor Yamir Rodriguez.
Yes.
Councilor Roy Avellaneda votes yes. Councilor Daniel Lopez.
Yes.
11 in favor, none opposed. Those motions passed. Okay, we have,
Next is a bundle of 3 that are transfers, which is 20 F82, 83, and 84.
I have a transfer of, my reading is 26,000, 43,000, 28,250, and 1,600. I have 4 free cash reserves to claims accounts, snow removal, salt accounts, and free cash to,
Can we just do the free cash?
yep. Nope, this is the authorization of free cash. The previous was salary reserve account.
Right, and then we just did free cash.
No, we just did the 9 salary accounts. We're now doing the free cash. We're now doing the 4 free cash transfers.
Yep.
Councilor Robinson asked that we do the 4 free cash transfers in the amount of $26,000, 43,893, 28,250, and 1,600 altogether. A yes vote will adopt, no vote against the 4 orders. Councilor Naomi Zabit.
Yes.
Councilor Judith Garcia.
Yes.
Councilor Todd Taylor.
Yes.
Councilor Giovanni Recupero.
Yes.
Councilor Leo Robinson.
Yes.
Councilor Calvin Brown.
Yes. Excuse me.
Councilor Damali Vido.
Yes.
Councilor Melinda Vega Maldonado.
Yes.
Councilor Yamir Rodriguez.
Yes.
Councilor Roy Avellaneda votes yes. Councilor Daniel Lopez.
Yes.
11 in favor, none against. Those 4 orders have passed. The next motions for our orders of transfers.
Free transfers.
3 transfers. The appropriation of transfers to DPW Buildings and Grounds Department for overtime, 7,157. Free cash DPW Buildings and Grounds other expense account of $38,253. And the $50,000 free cash DPW Solid Waste Department trash pickup disposal account.
Ask for a roll call vote on the adoption. Objection.
I see an objection. Councilor Brown.
Yeah, can, I just have an explanation for the 38,253. It's just an other expenditure account. Is this something directly?
I'm sorry, to the chair, City Manager Tom Ambrosino, if you can, is a request to explain what the DBW Buildings and Grounds Department other expenditure account of $38,000 is.
Yeah, so this is to reflect, that line item pays the taxes on 324 Marginal Street. That is the property that we leased on a long-term lease to Enterprise, a 30-year lease. One of the terms is that we pay the taxes on the land, so we appropriate money for these taxes each and every year. If you see the line item for the FY21 taxes, it went up considerably because the taxes, the land was revalued in the course of calendar year 2020. And as a result, the taxes on this land went up considerably. So our line item for FY21 is up considerably over where it was in FY20. But it was also the case that in FY20, because we put this number in before the revaluation came in, we did not have sufficient funds in this account to pay the full tax. So this is a deficit created by the fact that the tax bill for this land was much higher in FY20 than we anticipated when we submitted this line item in the spring of FY19. And so this is to cover the differential and allow us to pay off the taxes for FY20. In FY21, I have proposed to appropriate enough money to cover the new tax bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Seeing any other councilors? Seeing none. Chair will now call the roll. Councilor Naomi Zabit.
Yes.
Councilor Judith Garcia.
Yes.
Councilor Todd Taylor.
Yes.
Councilor Giovanni Recupero.
Yes.
Councilor Leo Robinson.
Yes.
Councilor Calvin Brown.
Yes.
Councilor Damali Vido. Councilor Melinda Maldonado.
Yes.
Councilor Amir Rodriguez.
Yes.
Councilor Roy Reginello votes yes. Councilor Enio Lopez.
Yes.
10 in favor, none against, 1 absent. Okay, we have a order introduced by Councilor Robinson regarding revolving funds from the Chelsea Community Chelsea Community Schools, Elder Affairs Revolving Fund, Emergency Management Hazardous Material Revolving Fund, Vacant Unsafe Buildings and Nuisance Properties Revolving Fund, Tax Title Foreclosure Properties Revolving Fund, and the Chelsea Public Library Revolving Fund. Each year, the ordinance requires the city to annually vote on or before July 1st of the amount that may be spent from each of these revolving funds in the upcoming fiscal year. Those amounts is $100,000 for community schools, $1,000 for elder affairs, $30,000 for emergency management hazardous materials, $30,000 for the unsafe buildings nuisance properties, $100,000 for the title tax foreclosure properties fund, and the Chelsea Public Library is $20,000. What is the wish of the Councilor Robinson?
I'd ask for a roll call vote on the adoption of both items.
Can I have a question?
Councilor Recupero, through the chair, you have a question.
On this tax title foreclosure property revolving fund, what does it consist of? We paying a different lawyer to mitigate these?
No,
Is
that's,
that your budget?
no.
Tax title foreclosure property revolving fund. So what are we paying? What is this for? For the city to go out the properties? Or we paying a different lawyer for it?
No, this is a revolving fund that takes tax title money from some planning department.
Receivership.
Yes.
Yes, that's what it is.
Yeah.
It is receivership money When a property is in tax title and we get money, we put a property in receivership to do repairs. We put out the money for repairs. We will get our money back when the property is sold and someone comes in and buys the property, they pay off the lien to the city.
It's like a land program.
No, what it is.
What I meant by that is like, we pay for it now, we get it back after everything is done.
If, for example, a building needs to be boarded up, the money from this no, sorry. Chair recognizes Cheryl Watson.
We have, properties that we put into receivership that have tenants, whereby sometimes they have to be fixed or the tenant needs to move or they're in place, and the, receiver doesn't necessarily have the money up front because it's more costly than what the receiver thought. We tend to pay for those repairs, and when the property is auctioned off or sold, we can, put it back into the revolving fund.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions? Seeing none?
Actually, I do have a question.
Councilor Vido.
I'm just wondering, do these orders require that we do these individual roll call votes? Is it possible to just lump them up unless somebody has an obligation? Any other pending financial orders? To lump them all up and have a roll call vote?
That's what we've been doing.
We've been bundling them up as in groups from salary accounts and so forth. So we're doing revolving funds at this point.
Okay, all right, fine. We're just trying to make it faster.
So yes vote will approve the revolving funds accounts, those 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different accounts. Council Naomi Zabit.
Yes.
Council Judith Garcia.
Yes.
Council Todd Taylor.
Yes.
Council Giovanni Recupero. Yes. Council Leo Robinson.
Yes.
Council Calvin Brown.
Yes.
Council Damali Vidal.
Yes.
Council Melinda Vega Maldonado.
Yes.
Council Yamir Rodriguez.
Yes.
Council Roy Rejaneda, yes. Council Enyo Lopez.
Yes.
11 in favor, none opposed, you're absent.
10-0.
I thought he said yes, I heard that, no? Might have been an echo. Okay. Thank you.
The next group is for expenditures.
The next order is for the expenditures of four.
On the next page, yeah, fine. Should be on, F87, 88, 89.
Wait a minute, what about F86?
That's the school, I don't think you did that. The school
we
department,
don't have that.
non-resident student tuition revolving fund.
Yeah, but also all included in
Was
the,
included.
yeah.
No, it was not. So I have the authorization of a revolving account for the school department, non-resident student tuition revolving fund. That is F86.
Okay.
The authorization is section 71F 71, where school committee adopted and implemented a tuition fee to be charged to other public school systems wishing to use Chelsea Public Schools special education programs, and voted further to establish a non-resident student tuition revolving fund for the receipt and distribution of said fees collected by the Chelsea Public Schools. It is for the aggregate amount of not to exceed $250,000 each fiscal year. All proceeds received in a single year after the fund has reached a balance $250,000 shall be credited to the general fund. Expenditures from this fund shall be authorized by the school committee or designee, shall not exceed the available balance. The school department shall provide a report, including all receipts and expenditures of this fund, to the city manager on a quarterly basis and to the city council on an annual basis in the accordance with the provisions of section 53E1/2 of chapter 44 general law. The revolving fund requires authorization ensuing each fiscal year. This fund is hereby authorized until June 30th, 2021.
I have a question.
Hold on. Councilor Robinson, what is your,
After a roll call vote on the adoption.
motion to adopt and a roll call vote? Councilor Recupero, you have a question?
Okay, on this one is for people that are used to live in our city and then lost, where they don't live there, and they're in a shelter, and we transport them, so. For people, I don't get what, this is what,
Let it, Council.
now explain to me what this means.
Thank you.
So, as I understand it, occasionally the Chelsea Public School System will offer a program to its special needs students that is a good program that is not available in a nearby community, say Revere. So Revere may have a special needs student that requires that program in their IEP. Instead of Revere finding some other school district far away that charges a lot of money, it will send that student to Chelsea Public Schools for that program, and it will pay Chelsea Public Schools an amount of money for tuition for that special needs program. And the tuition money goes into this account and is a revolving fund that the school department uses to offer those programs to its special needs students. So it's occasional special needs programs that we do for our own students. Instead of outsourcing it to another school, we provide it in-house. And sometimes it's a program that other nearby communities also need, and they'll pay us to have their children come into that special needs.
Mr. Tom, by special needs, you mean a program that the school doesn't offer, that you have to send it to a different school. Is that what you mean?
Well, we're offering it, but in another district, they might not have it. And if they have a child with an independent educational plan that requires that program, they could send them to Chelsea to take part in that program, and they would pay the Chelsea Public Schools tuition. And that tuition gets put into this revolving account.
I get it. So in other words, we send them somewhere else and they send them here. It's a program that they use both ways, right? Because we must have students that you don't offer here that we send somewhere else.
Correct. We have plenty of students that we have to send out because we don't have the right programming for them. We have to send them to outplacement, different schools. There's all sorts of schools that offer special needs placements. Like one example is North Shore Collaborative, but there's many others, and they're very expensive to outsource. So occasionally school districts, not just Chelsea, but others, try to create in-house programming when they feel they can manage it. And sometimes that program, you know, Revere might have a program that one of our students needs, we'll send them to Revere. Chelsea has a program that's providing.
Okay, I understand.
Other communities will send them here, and they pay tuition. And it goes into this revolving fund to pay the cost of running the program. Typically, the cost is you're hiring some specialized teacher for the classroom.
All right.
Maybe it's a speech class or something unique that is required in a independent education.
Okay, fine, thank you.
The clerk's not here. The chair will now call roll. Councilor Naomi Zabit.
Yes.
Councilor Julie Garcia.
Yes.
Councilor Todd Taylor.
Yes.
Councilor Giovanni Recupero.
Yes.
Councilor Leo Robinson.
Yes.
Councilor Calvin Brown.
Yes.
Councilor Melinda Vega Maldonado.
No, Damali Vidal.
I'm sorry, Councilor Vidal. Yes?
Yes.
Okay. Councilor Melinda Maldonado. Absolutely. Councilor Yamir Rodriguez.
Yes.
Councilor Roy Avellaneda says yes. Councilor Angel Lopez. Yes. 10 in favor, 0 absent. 1 absent, 1 against. Okay, now we have the roll call for the expenditures of 4 orders. There will be orders F87, F88, F89, F90. The expenditures are for the parking department of $2,781.33. $750.05 for the council to expenditure of the fire department. $150 to the Human Services Department to satisfy an HR seminar, and $97,000, $356.79 to the school department for unpaid student transportation costs to Puritan Distribution by DBA North Shore Shuttle for special education outside the city. So, Councilor Robinson, what is the wish?
Roll call vote on the adoption.
Okay. Council Naomi Zabit.
Yes.
Council Judith Garcia.
Yes.
Councilor Todd Taylor.
Yes.
Councilor Giovanni Recupero.
Yes.
Councilor Leo Robinson.
Yes.
Councilor Calvin Brown.
Yes. Yes.
Councilor Damali Vido.
Yes.
Councilor Melinda Maldonado.
Yes.
Oh, she's down. No. Councilor Yamir Rodriguez.
Yes.
Councilor Roy Avellaneda says yes. Councilor Enio Lopez. Yes. 11 in favor, 0 against, 0 absent. The order passed. Okay, we have an order to accept a gift from a Nancy Masson in the amount of $100 to support the public food program. Councilor Robinson.
Move for a roll call vote on the acceptance of the gift.
Councilor Naomi Zabit.
Yes.
Councilor Judith Garcia.
Yes.
Councilor Todd Taylor.
Yes.
Councilor Giovanni Recupero. Councilor Leo Robinson.
Yes.
Councilor Calvin Brown.
Yes.
Councilor Damali Vido.
Yes.
Councilor Melinda Maldonado.
Yes.
Councilor Yamir Rodriguez.
Yes.
Councilor Roy Avellaneda says yes. Councilor Enio Lopez. Yes. 11 in favor, 0 against, 0 absent.
Should be in.
Oh, we have, Councilor, where's the order?
Should be,
This is a different one. Okay. Yeah. So.
you got the, vote on.
Removes the budget. I have, a council removes from the budget conference. That was the next one. Otherwise, I have others. So we can go.
Right, before that, we gave, Cupro's order for 300,000.
I have right now, I now have these, sorry.
After the gift.
Right, so I have the order introduced by Councilor Recupero is the next one on the agenda.
2103, is that what we're referring to?
ID 20F48.
Yeah.
That's what I have here, is an order introduced by Councilor Recupero regarding the appropriation of funds in the amount of $300,000 in free cash to the FY Planning Department Housing Rehab Fund. But I don't have the
order in front of
order
us.
in front of me. I'm gonna hold off on that until I have the order. Okay, so I'm gonna come back to that. New business.
You missed this one here. Should have been on, huh?
The donation is already done.
We did the donation. It should have been behind one of the, pink cards.
This is the peg access,
Yeah.
budget was the first item on my letter.
Oh.
had a first reading at the last.
Right. What, in the pink package?
Yes.
It should be right behind one of those. I'm not already, my bio. Yeah.
Okay. So I have a appropriation, the FY 2021 Cable Television, Public Education and Government Access Special Revenue Funds budget. Order that the City Council appropriate the following amounts from the PEG Access and Cable Related Fund for public access via the Chelsea Community Cable. Salaries of $190,299. Operations, $45,916. Capital, $5,000. A total of $251,215. For educational access via the school department, salaries of $77,700. Operations of $76,000, software and related support, zero capital, total $153,700. For government access via the city manager's office, salary zero. Operations, $30,000 for translation services, $50,000 reserved for pilot resident internet project, capital $50,000, city hall fiber deployment, a total $130,000. Council Robinson, this is, was introduced at the June 18th, you said? 18th meeting. And it's a second reading.
Yeah, that's for a roll call vote on the adoption.
Motion to adopt and a roll call vote. Are there any questions? Seeing none?
No, yes, I have a question. What are we voting on exactly? Because I don't see it on the.
This was the order introduced at the June 18th meeting. Was it June 18th?
No, it was June 22nd.
June 22nd, rather. Last week, there's the appropriation for the cable television and education program budget. So basically, this is the budget for cable community, the Chelsea cable community.
Okay. Thank you.
Just if I could, starting last year, the state made us appropriate specifically a budget for these accounts. Previously, we didn't have to do that, but as of last year, the council has to appropriate money each year, a budget for these accounts.
Mr. President, may I speak on it quickly?
Councilor Garcia.
I want to take a moment to just say that I obviously will be supporting this, and just to thank CCTV as they've been essential through the communication process during COVID-19. I know that that was a big way that we communicated with our residents, so thank you for that.
Anyone else? Seeing none. Chair will call a roll. Councilor Naomi Zabit.
Yes.
Councilor Judith Garcia.
Yes.
Councilor Todd Taylor.
Yes.
Councilor Giovanni Recupero.
Yes.
Councilor Leo Robinson.
Yes.
Councilor Calvin Brown.
Yes.
Councilor Damali Rideau.
Yes.
Councilor Melinda Vega.
Yes.
Councilor Yamir Rodriguez.
Yes.
Councilor Roy Regineta votes yes. Councilor Enya Lopez.
Yes.
11 in favor, 0 against, 0 absent. Okay, so we have we found the order, and the order reads, order that the appropriation of funds in the amount of $300,000 in free cash go to the FY 20 Planning Department Housing Rehab Fund for a housing rehab program eligible for Chelsea households in all areas of Chelsea who earn up to $100,000 of the area median income. Councilor Recupero, what is your wish?
Won't go over, I can speak on it.
Okay, you may speak.
We voted on this, we adopted this in March 4th, and then we never had a chance, we adopted on the suspension, and then we never had a chance to vote on it to actually do it. This is a good program. It's some money that comes out of Massport Out of the 600,000, 300,000 is used to help the homeowners. And right now, a lot of homeowners that might need fixing allows them to fix because things are tough. And it's, if the homeowners, they have to live in their house for 15 years, and if they sell it before 15 years, the homeowners have to pay back. So it's the same paper loan that they have, except now it gives an opportunity for more people to use it, homeowners to use it, and it comes out of Massport money. It doesn't cost the taxpayers any money. It comes out of the Massport money. Thank you. So I like to ask roll call vote now.
Clarification,
Councilor Robinson is asking for a clarification.
is it coming out of the general fund or it's gonna be earmarked out of Massport money?
This would come out of free cash. We can't appropriate directly out of Massport.
Point of inquiry, it states FY20 Planning Department Housing Rehab Fund, number 3090. Wouldn't that have to be changed?
It's a non-general fund line, so it'll be fine the way it is. The general fund would change.
Okay. And Council Recupero stipulates that there will be certain criteria, but none of them are mentioned here in the order. So how would that be applied? Are they going to be the standards that he is stating, or is there, again, some of the criteria that he's talking about would happen, but do those criteria, what are the criteria of the Department of Housing Rehab Fund right now?
Well, basically, CSPG money can only be used in the Bellingham Charlotte area. And this proposal is for anyone in the city to have access to. But I don't know if he's gonna follow the same criteria that he used for CSPG or.
Can I give a little background on this?
Please.
So, sometime earlier this year, it might have even been at the end of 19, I don't remember, the council by unanimous vote passed a motion asking me to consider using $300,000 for a rehab program that would differ from CDBG in two respects. One, it would be available citywide, as Council Robinson said. Our CDBG money is for our target areas and doesn't include the entire city. So our rehab program under Community Development Block Grant Funds is limited to the target zone of CDBG, and there are parts of the city where we can't allow homeowners to access this money. The second thing that CDBG has as a requirement is that you can't earn more than 80% of area median income. This was a program the council asked me to consider that would be separate from CDBG, would apply citywide, and would allow for someone to access these funds if they earned up to 100% of area median income. I included this in a free cash request that came to the city council by my letter of March the 4th. In that letter were 4 free cash requests: the Bunker Hill money, senior transportation to continue that in FY21, this and noise abatement for Logan Airport. All were read at a first meeting on March the 9th, had their first reading, that council meeting, on Monday, March the 9th, and then City Hall shut down on March the 11th, and we never again met. I came back to the council during the emergency votes and said, I'm gonna pull out the Bunker Hill one, because that's an emergency, that has to be voted. And these other 3, I'm gonna defer to some other time. They weren't as imperative as the Bunker Hill money. The senior transportation, frankly, we're not transporting any seniors this year because it's hard to do that on a small bus in the COVID era. The airport noise is still important, but would travel down about 90%, not as pressing for us to move forward imminently, although still something I think is important. And this one, which is important, there's value to this. I simply didn't pursue it because it wasn't the top priority for me. But it was recommended by me. I think it has value. I was responding specifically to a unanimous council vote to do this, and that's the genesis of this program. If it's approved, the only conditions that I see that would be on it are the two I mentioned, citywide and 100% of AMI. There are no other restrictions as far as I can tell. It would be run by our planning department, very similar to their CDBG rehabilitation program.
Is there a cap on the loan per applicant? Is it, a cap of 10,000 so you can do 300
I
homes?
don't believe there is a cap on what you can buy. Ned might know more.
Just curious.
Just from an equity point of view, with CDBG, we do cap it so that we can get to as many people as reasonable.
What is the normal cap on the CBD?
We have a range, but it's usually between 30 and 40,000. Some go up higher if the number of beneficiaries is higher. If the benefiting parties, if there are more of them, more apartments, but that's our general loans. So it's best to be flexible. I mean, the department would endeavor to take in applications and respond to as many applicants as reasonable. We sometimes take in applicants through the CDB program who then are not eligible. So we are sometimes processing applications that then we could stick to this program. So program definitions are leaving some flexibility is helpful to the program.
City Solicitor Watson, you had your hand up?
I want to piggyback on what they were saying. These are loans given to property owners as to their property that is 0% interest 9 times out of 10. We've done a lot of these programs before. We do ask that some of the affordability restrictions be made on the house, but I haven't heard any parameters on this particular program. The CDBG has a lot of check-offs that you have to do.
And these are all owner-occupied requirements, correct?
For affordable units.
Yes, if the benefiting party is income eligible, the renting party in that unit, then the unit is restricted. But if buildings don't, under CDBG, they don't have to be on.
Councilor Garcia, you had your hand up?
No, so I just brief comments. Thank you, Councilor Recupero, for introducing this. I think that it's a wonderful plan, and equally like you, I have a lot of questions about what that process is going to look like and what that requirement is going to be. However, I think it's something that we can work out once this is approved and voted in favor of. I know that as a city, we focus so much, this leadership has focused so much on supporting local businesses and supporting our residents and ensuring that they do not lose their homes, especially renters. So I think taking this step is a step in the right direction to help homeowners with, rehabilitating their homes and bringing a little bit of more hope into our city and just making it more beautiful. So I look forward, I equally share some of the questions that you have, Councilor Avellaneda, but I think in essence, the goal of this is so important, and I will be in support of it.
Can I just add one note of caution to the council? We have so many programs we're trying to move forward in planning. Small business program, another round of rental assistance, trying to get a food debit card program done. It will be some time before we're able to turn our attention to this program. So I wouldn't anticipate this being launched anytime in the next few months. We will have the money set aside, and once we get our heads above water, the planning department and the housing group will be able to focus on.
Okay. Any other questions? Seeing none, I will now call the roll.
Well, I'd ask to lay it on the table till we get clarification on the program's going to be run.
That's for a roll call vote.
There's no debate. There's no debate.
Not on the table, roll call vote.
Motion has been asked to be laid on the table. There's no, it's not something that can be voted on. Similar to a second reading. I would just say that I will not be discouraged, but if I were the sponsor, because as city manager stated, even if this was to pass, we're still looking at months and months before they'd have their ability to get this out. So at the first meeting, come September, we can bring it from off the table and then do a roll call vote at that time.
Okay, that's fair enough, I guess, we can wait until September.
I would just have one more note of caution. We will not have free cash in September. Free cash is not likely to be certified
So we need to
until
do it now.
November.
But even, I would say, that's probably the more realistic time frame when we'd be turning our attention to this. So I don't think as a practical matter, this coming back at that time would be an impediment.
Okay, moving on to do business.
So, Mr. President,
Yes.
I make a motion to remove one of my orders.
Which one?
Order 2102 regarding planning and development inspection services. That matter has been addressed, so I'd like to remove it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Haven't gotten there yet, but we will plug along.
I'll save you time.
Moving on to do business.
It's actually not new business. Like to, at this point in time, remove from conference the budget. There are 3 sections that we need to vote on.
Council Robinson, is this the order that, in regards to the following sums as classified and designated with respect to each department undertaking as salaries, operations, and maintenance and capital, and hereby appropriated in the general fund of the city of Chelsea as listed below and summarized. Salaries, $49,580,934. Operations and maintenance, $131,210,157, and capital of $295,000, totaling $181,086,091. Is that the general fund that you were speaking to?
Yeah, that it is, but we need to take each one individually to roll vote on. Am I correct on that?
No,
it's a total.
You can take a vote on this, but then you need to take one on water separate. And then
We've done that separately.
But you do have to announce the categories as separate, which is present.
You just did.
Okay, so we have in front of us the budget, the general fund, which is again a total of $181,086,091. They're broken up into the 3 categories as I've just stated. And what is the motion?
Ask for a roll call vote on the adoption.
There's a motion on the floor for a roll call vote. Is there anyone who would like to speak on this? Councilor Enya Lopez.
Is this for budget?
This is, we are now voting on the budget, correct? At this time, this is a time that anyone wants to make any amendments. I have an amendment I'd like to introduce at this time, if given, if see any objection, if I read from the chair.
No objections.
Seeing none, I have amend FY 2021 proposed budget section 0117551 general fund and planning and development personal regular salary line item 510200 $345,337 to be reduced by $78,003.12 to a total of $267,333.88. I may speak on that.
Yes, you may.
Thank you, Vice Chair. This is in particular to the exact amount of salary that is equal to the downtown coordinator. In the past, we have had attempts to cut this salary, and if I'm not mistaken, I think in the past, it's been a general fund amount. In this year's budget, the amount is being paid for by the redevelopment bucket, so to speak, which we cannot attack or address because it's out of the purview of the city council. So I'm cutting it out of the general fund, the same amount, and by sending a message to the city manager to state that that's the position I still want to have cut. In the past, when attempts by my colleagues to cut this position has been proposed, I've stood up for the position and stated that we were too early in the position of cutting it and not enough time was given it to make some inroads to do what the job was created for, which was to make noticeable differences in the downtown, promote businesses, and create a sort of atmosphere and events that are, distinguished to Chelsea alone. My reason for making the cut is the following. First, I've seen the lack of progress. I have not seen the results that one would hope after several years for this. I can name maybe one signature event. It was reminding me that actually one of the other events that I thought was attributed was actually not run by this individual, but actually by a city solicitor. And that was Chelsea Pride, I believe.
Chelsea Day.
Chelsea Day. So Chelsea Day was actually not even an event that was run by the downtown coordinator, but was outside of it. In addition to that, I see a lack of development by the individual with our downtown merchants, a lack of relationship building, which is key, I think, to, at this point, 3 years later, that is required in order to be successful. As a matter of fact, I've actually heard complaints from the downtown stakeholders that they seem that there's no connection between the coordinator and what they're desiring or what they'd like to see in the downtown area. And I don't take that lightly. I also don't take that lightly from complaints by fellow colleagues who state the same. I'm seeing, in addition to that, I believe, some outsourcing of some tasks and responsibilities that I think should have been under the purview of this downtown coordinator. The sign program got off to a very rocky start, ended up being transferred over to the Chelsea Business Foundation. We're seeing the microloan program for a downtown also didn't seem to be connected to a downtown coordinator. And now we're talking about a loan program that we're putting $1 million into, and yet we were being asked to fund nearly a quarter of that money to, again, outside services and not being used by our coordinator. So I think that we're actually doing much more double spending for what should be happening by at least this individual. With that, I am asking that my colleagues support this cut and that we realize that maybe this just isn't resulting in the desired effects or goals that were originally planned. And I ask for a roll call vote on this amendment.
Mr. President, may I ask a question?
A question or a statement? Yes, you may.
Thank you. A statement, I suppose. I think that it is really important that we have a downtown coordinator. I consider that to be a form of a dedication to the arts, partially. And as is often the case, the arts are underfunded and are taken away as an option to increase funding in another area. And I think that it's a very important position that regardless of who fills it, and perhaps the person who's in there right now is not filling it in the way that is necessary in this city, I would be very in favor of keeping the position and looking at alternatives to just nixing it completely. Thank you.
Any other councilors? Councilor Daniel Lopez.
Yes, first of all, I want to say, I don't have those amendments. And,
I'll ask Councilor Fatima to present that.
then I want to say that a while ago, Councilor got put something about this, the downtown coordinator. I think there was 3 councilors voted against it, everybody else voted in favor. And again, I'm gonna be against the money we spend.
Can you speak a little clearer? I'm sorry. Can you speak a little clearer?
I'll be in favor of cutting this money for the downtown coordinator. I haven't seen any changes. I expressed myself like 2 years, 3 years ago, and I'm against it again. So I'm gonna be in favor of cutting that money. Thank you.
Yeah, I have a question, Mr. Ward.
Councilor Vido.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm a bit perplexed. For the past couple of years, I have been the counselor that has led the efforts in cutting this salary from the planning department, because for the same reasons that you just cited, I didn't feel that the downtown coordinator at the time was building relationships with a lot of the business owners, particularly the Latinx business owners. And so I was in favor of cutting the salary. However, I think the part that gets me is that in budget, during our budget hearings, the city manager specifically said that he was thinking of shifting that position. That position became a union position, and that he had a different idea of what that role would be, specifically because this person that, although I've spoken against in the past because of the way that the position was filled or the duties were carried out of the downtown service coordinator, is essentially the key person that held down the Chelsea pandemic response team. And I am a bit disgusted that we would treat an employee who literally dedicated 18 hours a day, that I would call at 9 o'clock at night, and this person would bring disinfectant wipes and food to families that were in quarantine without asking any questions, that we would even think to cut this salary when in the middle of a pandemic, no one has said anything about amending the salaries of the people that have stayed on post-retirement, that are not showing up for a pandemic where their job should be to fulfill those roles. So I'm a little confused as to why this is happening. I would absolutely not be supporting this. This is not how you treat your employees, particularly when they show up during the darkest days of our community.
Councilor Brown.
Thank you, Mr. President. 2 things. One is, before I speak, is it possible to let the city manager speak, just to explain this position that we're talking about? Because I got 2 thoughts differently. One is, listening to you, and the other is listening to the city manager, which I don't think has been really clear to the council. So is it possible we could yield time for the city manager to speak?
City Manager Tom Eprzino. Councilor would like to hear your opinion on the proposal.
So I feel like I'm every budget season defending this person and position. And so I'll do so again. And I'm gonna leave aside the union piece for a moment, although I have to come back to that at the end. I feel this person has brought significant value to our efforts to enhance the downtown. Now, it's true that the focus of the job has changed since Ned and I first designed it 4 years ago. Initially, it was crafted to be someone who engaged with businesses. But when we hired this person, after a while it became clear that that wasn't necessarily where her talent lay. Her talent lay in enhancing the downtown in terms of public art, civic design, improving the public realm, creating events that drew people to the downtown. And so we started over time to shift away from small business support to someone who was more engaged with civic design. And I feel like she has been incredibly successful in that realm. I mean, the work on Division Street, the improvements that she has done to Luther Place, the kind of events that she has brought to the downtown, her efforts in getting that transformative district initiative grant to the city. I think she has been effective, and I feel like prior to COVID, the trajectory of our downtown was really on a positive trajectory. Unfortunately, obviously, COVID has impacted this, but I still think that we need someone doing what she was doing prior to COVID, which was that focus on civic design, improving the public spaces, improving the public realm within the downtown, through public art, through events, through cultural efforts. I think she's been very successful at making a difference. Now, so part of the reason why I was, for the last 6 months prior to COVID, was trying to revamp her job description was because it was clear the old downtown coordinator description didn't really match what her focus had become. It doesn't mean that her focus hasn't been effective. I really think it has been. I would also add that it does seem to me a little bit unfair that we're focusing on this position when that person, as Councilor Vido said, was absolutely instrumental in the city's response, positive and effective response to COVID-19. There were many, many people in this city who worked extremely hard to help us make that response effective. Fidel was one of them. People in our planning department like Alex Train and Ben Kears. But Mimi was as equally effective as anyone in that effort. She was instrumental, and the effort that she put in was monumental. Literally, I was here 14 hours a day, 7 days a week for almost 2 full months. And she was here every hour of that time. I would have to tell her to go home when I was leaving at 10 o'clock because she was still in the office. I feel like it's unfair to treat an employee like that. The other thing I would say is this person is now a union employee. This was an essential piece of the negotiations with the Steelworkers Union, that person and 2 other people who were exempt employees were going to join that union in that negotiation. It was one of their key points of negotiation because they felt it was not legal for them not to be in their union. So she is a union employee. Cutting the salary in that department that has all union employees is not going to allow me to eliminate her or anyone else because we negotiated in FY21 to save hundreds of thousands of dollars by the union foregoing their raise in FY21. And the consideration they got in return was no union employee would be laid off. So I can't lay off not only her, but no other City Hall union employee can be laid off because they have given us a considerable financial condition and consideration to prevent that from happening. So I think substantively, this is not an appropriate motion, but procedurally, it's not going to accomplish what you want because she will still be an employee here. As a union employee, she cannot be laid off in fiscal year 21. Fiscal year 22 and beyond are different matters. There could be other layoffs that year, but in 21, we've agreed with those unions, the 3 City Hall unions, Steelworkers, SEIU, and Library, there would be no layoffs. And in return, they made salary concessions that saved the city hundreds of thousands of dollars, more than we would ever have secured in layoffs if we had gone down that road.
Councilor Recupero.
Okay, so from what I understand, what you said, the city manager is, no matter, even if we vote to cut the 78,000 off, her job is still safe and she's secure, so there's, what you're saying, this is like, okay, you can cut it, but you ain't gonna cut her because it's part of the union. In other words, even if we cut it or we don't cut it, it doesn't make a difference, right?
It's not that it won't make a difference, it'll create a problem for me in figuring out how to fund a department that is gonna be $77,000 short of money when I have no reduction in force I can do because every member of that department is a union employee.
So in other words, it will create issues for the city or for that department.
It will create financial issues for the city that I haven't quite figured out how I would address.
So you would recommend not to do it?
I would strongly recommend against this amendment, yes. But I would do so not just on this union issue, which I see as sort of not the true issue. I think there's value in this position and in this employee. It may not be exactly what it was intended when Ned and I created this downtown coordinator position, but it has morphed into one that's a little different, but one that still, in my opinion, is bringing real value to the downtown. And if we can remember what we were looking at in that downtown 6 months ago, it was a place that I at least thought was on the rise.
I can understand, Council, when you make us think that he's trying, it's two sides to it. We hire for one, then we hire someone to do that one. So I'm caught in the middle here. I don't know which way to go.
You have a question, Councilor Recupero?
Huh?
You have a question?
Yeah, the question is this: if we do, you have issues. If we don't, you have no issues. So the question is, what do we do?
Councilor Brown.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, Mr. City Manager. You know, the budget this year process has been like any that we've experienced in years. On the challenges because of the COVID-19. Normally we would be in one room, we can get a lot of questions answered, we could pull the city manager, the department head to the side and ask them questions before they adjourn, before they leave. If you just look at what we're talking about, if we just look at Mimi's job and we just look at this downtown coordinator, and we probably all agree in some form or some way that it hasn't been lived up to as what we expected. But if we look at some of the other things that we have discussed and heard from the city manager, we have to understand that that job, whoever holds it, has value. If they're going to keep up the same work habits that Mimi laid out with the other work she done beyond the downtown coordinator. I mean, I was one for one to look at this here and say, hey, okay, we need to start cutting. We need to be really aggressive. One councilor already said there's much more at stake than just this position here. The city manager, I wanted you to hear what he was saying because, again, normally we can hear this in a meeting, a subcommittee meeting where we didn't have to get offline or just got offline or, you know, not being all together. But the compromise that had to be made to not lay off anyone and also not and hold off the raises for a year. That was a big accomplishment. I worked with 3 unions. These people are part of this basic union. We're still keeping our basic service here. And I just think that, you know, by listening to him and hearing more of what's in store, I'm 100%. I've been down to the distribution center. I've been to locations where I was like, Mimi, what are you doing here? Sally, what are you doing here? She's had this hat on like she was a gardener from, you know, another place. But she was there working, she was there sweating and tears out, providing what we call basic services to our constituents. So I see it different now by hearing this and also by hearing that, you know, this person is a now, or I don't know how long, but this person is a union employee, and the union has given us some considerations because of what we just went through. And I agree with Tom. I think just as much as Fidel, Alex, Ben, And I think Mimi, and no gender discrimination, I think she was in that top 4. She could be first, second, third, or fourth. So there's no gender discrimination there. She was a part of that core team. And whether it was a 4:00 afternoon meeting that we met weekly and updated folks on what you can do, what you can help, how you can do this. She kept them moving. She kept everything going. And I think she just, from what Tom is saying, we have better things in store for her for what we're getting for this price. And one other thing is, if we were able to cut off this money, and I spoke to the city manager about this, we would still be entitled, if we had to lay someone off, 60% of their salary. So in general, in retrospect, we're probably let's say 80,000. We'll probably be saving $35,000. I think her value is more than $35,000 at this time. I think, we can work with, I agree with my counsel said, the art, Lucha's play, the Vision Street, all of it has really been nice, it's taken care of. So I'll just share that with you. Hopefully we'll do what's right. Thank you.
Councilor Garcia.
Thank you, Mr. President. So I am going to speak, and I'm going to look this way because I was informed by our tech team that the public can't hear me otherwise. Councilor Avellaneda, thank you for submitting this. I think that the message that you are sending, and we should not be short-sighted by the message, and again, I am interpreting the way I read it. And what I'm seeing here is that the lesson learned and the clear message that you're trying to send here is that there was a role created to support our small businesses, our downtown corridor. And somehow, some way, this role has not fulfilled that in terms of relationship, and I agree and understand with that. In terms of, and again, the frustrations that have been expressed by the businesses here regarding a lot of frustration. This is pre-COVID. So, and I want to divide my remarks in that sense. Pre-COVID, Councilor Vidal was also very vocal of the lack of support to some of these Latinx businesses that are in the downtown corridor. This role, as the way it was portrayed to us when it was first created and introduced to us, it was meant to do exactly that, support the businesses in the downtown area and provide help not only in terms of events, but also in terms of programs, and have a focus and a focused effort on doing that. And unfortunately, there were a lot of mishaps in the process. We rolled out exciting programs. I was in the midst of these programs. I would get complaints of these programs, of how confusing they were. We were selling really nice grants for signages, and then all of a sudden in the process, people got lost. They were handed off to different contacts. Personally, I called a meeting just to gain an understanding of who was in charge of that program. And what businesses are asking is to have one main point contact in the city that can really, see the success of the program. One person they can go to ask for an application. One person they can go to ask questions about that application. And we're seeing the uptick of that need, especially now that we're in COVID-19, and businesses are starting to reopen, and we're offering emergency funding programs. Our businesses are in need of help, and we need to provide a point person. So I think that the clear message that you're sending here with this amendment is we need to stay true to our word when we hire folks. That being said, I know that this has become a hybrid role, and as Tom Ambrosino mentioned, you've given this specific employee the flexibility to really shine with the skill sets that she brings to the table. And we have seen her success throughout COVID-19. And as Councilor Vidal mentioned, she has been instrumental throughout this pandemic response, even though her title did not require her to do so. But she stood up for the task, spent hours and hours helping our community. I personally saw her walking downtown, giving cleaning supplies to many of residents, many cities, and she was a main point of contact to keep us sane and keep us communicating. So That being said, I see what you're saying. I completely agree. I will always support our businesses, and this is an outcry for that. However, she has been instrumental, and I believe that what we should be asking for is, if she is going to be instrumental for a city, perhaps looking at changing her title and having her focus on only that. But I personally, my values do not allow me to vote in favor of this resolution, even though I understand the importance of providing support to our businesses and staying true to our word. But Mimi has been instrumental throughout this COVID-19 process. Personally, I've been given interviews to different media outlets where they constantly ask, how has Chelsea been able to do this? And we've been able to survive this crisis and decrease our confirmed cases with the effort of many of the employees, some that were customer facing and some that were at City Hall working late hours, who we haven't had the luxury to see but deserve the same credit and the same amount of respect because they were essential, even though they were visibly on cameras like many of us were. So unfortunately, I won't be supporting this amendment, but I do support you in the outcry that our businesses deserve better and that they deserve someone to speak to and not to be handed off constantly to different people. Thank you.
If I may.
Councilor Robinson.
I just want to follow up. You know, I have mixed feelings in regards to this, and I feel that I shouldn't have to go to another community to enjoy some of the events that she did put together, you know, like the night market. I know there were issues with some of the businesses, but not with all businesses, with some businesses. And whether that was partly because of communication, not being able to communicate with some of our Latino brothers and sisters. But my concern, if we were to lay off this person, it's still gonna cost the city X amount of dollars because we're gonna have to cover her for unemployment benefits and, you know, possibly cover some of her medical coverage. So I'd be very cautious about how we approach this.
Okay. I think that ends all conversation, but I think that I have that'd be fair if I just respond to all of these points that were brought up. And I understand that the idea
I object from you speaking from the chair. I think we should just vote call it. You shouldn't be speaking from the chair, period, but let alone debating.
Councilor Vidal, but I believe that Vice Chair Garcia had taken over the chair.
Do you want me to move?
So she had taken over the chair when I put this up. So actually,
okay, all right. I mean, then I guess I'll speak again too.
Okay. Lots of points were brought up, and even the city manager got to make his spiel, and I understand. But a lot of people, you know, bring up what was done during COVID-19. And the reason for what this brought this up, and I'm not taking anything away from the effort that was brought up by this individual nor this position, but I'm looking at the position in itself. And there were criticisms about what was going on prior to. And coming out of the gate, guess what? We are already on the other side. And within a month or two, this is going to be back to what this dedication is going to be. We're not going to be collecting diapers anymore. We're not going to be distributing anymore hand sanitizer and the like. What we're going to be is back to the job that this was originally supposed to be doing, which is coordinate downtown and help the downtown businesses. And it's troubling that in the very first effort of this, and this is, again, recent, is complaints about how the rollout was of the sidewalk licenses and the pallets. Very first rollout. And yet we're gonna have something going on now for the next year. So if we had problems before, and now we're already past the emergency, and we're no longer doing the 4 o'clock calls, and we're back to what the role is supposed to be, and we're already having backlash from those very same individuals who are supposed to be, benefiting from this position. What does that say? Yeah, you know what? I know it's tough to make these sort of decisions, but there's history here, there's a performance here, and sometimes, unfortunately, you make a hire, and just like the 911 director, sometimes it just doesn't work out, and you move on. And yet the city manager had no problem not only firing somebody, but also paying an additional $15,000 more to get who he thought was going to be the right person. And sometimes you have to look at that. And I can't think that, okay, that for the next year, while this position's on the books, that we're going to continue doing what is COVID-19 situation. It has to be about what that job is. So is it, and come January, are we going to be talking about hand sanitizer, a 4 o'clock p.m. daily call? Is that what we're going to be talking about, what this position is going to be paid? Or is it going to be about the job that so far we've heard lots of complaints about? And I know it's not an easy call and so forth, but that's what we're here for. Sometimes making the tough decisions and reacting to what we're hearing out there. And again, yes, this was brought in the past. And in the past, I said, let's give it some time. It was unfair to say, after 1 year, even 2 years, get some going. We're going on to 4 years now. And it doesn't look like there's an improvement here, at least not from what I'm listening to. So I stand by my position, and maybe this is a shot against the, across the bow to the city manager to really take a look at what is going on and the feedback and the fact that he's not maybe connected to the very individuals that we're all listening from, or that the very fact that maybe this person is not connected to the very people that we're all listening from. So anyway, that's my take, and I get it. It's a tough choice. Personally, I like the individual. There's nothing to do with it. But sometimes as a manager, as bosses, you got to realize some people don't fit, and that's it. Anyway, Councilor
Garcia.
Nothing.
You gotta.
Oh, sorry. Councilor Rivera.
Thank you, Councilor Garcia. I agree with a lot of what our council president is saying as far as the city manager's lack of management of a lot of the employees, department heads and people, and we just keep perpetuating and allowing them to kind of just sway through. There's a lot of validity to what he's saying, especially when we're talking about specifically the responsibilities of the downtown coordinator position that I've been arguing for years. I just like, my concern is, just as we thought it was too soon, or we hadn't given the amount of ample time for this person to demonstrate their leadership, I really just have a problem with us coming the second that we reopen. We've only been open a couple of weeks, and wanting to cut a position of someone that was vital in the pandemic response, that actually kept people fed, alive, clean. I just like my values. I cannot support that. So I just want to make sure, Councilor Avellaneda, that you know that I hear a lot of what you're saying, and we need to put some pressure on the city manager about the way he continues to allow mediocre employees or people that are not fulfilling their roles and doing better. We absolutely need to get tougher on him and allowing people after they retire to stay on. If you remember correctly, I attempted to cut that salary, portion of the salary from emergency management last year. I don't agree with it. It is wrong, and we need to do better. But to pretend, and this is the problem that bothers me, we have so many needs in this city right now. We're in the middle of a pandemic. We're in the middle of the biggest civil rights movement most of us have seen in our lives. And to think that we're going to solve this by cutting the itty bitty salary of a woman that really sacrificed her life and her health to carry us through some tough times, it's just not the way to go. It's not how you treat employees. It's not how you treat people. And I think that we in Chelsea are better than that. I just wanted to make sure to say that.
Okay, are we ready for roll call? Any more comments? Any more comments? No? So we proceed with roll call. Councilor Naomi Zaba.
No.
Councilor Judith Garcia. No. Councilor Todd Taylor.
No.
Councilor Giovanni Recupero.
No.
Councilor Leo Robinson.
No.
Counselor Calvin Brown,
No.
is that a no?
No.
No.
Counselor Damali Vidal,
No.
Counselor Melinda Maldonado,
No.
Counselor Jamir Rodriguez,
No.
Counselor Gloria Avellaneda,
Yes.
Counselor Enio Lopez.
Yes.
So with that, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 in favor, 2 opposed. I'm sorry, two in favor, 9 opposed.
Right.
Amendment fails.
Amendment fails. Next item. Mr. President, I give the chair back to you.
Thank you very much. We're back to the original order, which is the funding of the budget. No, it's pulled.
You pulled the amount? Okay.
So.
It was voted down.
Trying to think, where is the, hold on one second. That's the late on the table. That's the amendment.
Are there any other amendments being proposed?
No.
Did you pull the other one?
Correct.
Okay.
What? For the order on the budget itself. Hold on. You wrote the one for this one, correct?
Yep.
The water, sewer,
Should be
general
three of them.
stabilization, executive, redundant, no.
Let me go see if I can get.
This was the one, but what happened was that you didn't write it as the amendment. So, no, it's fine. I'll have to redo it. So you used the, I apologize for the confusion, everyone. Back on, just to let you know what's going on. I inadvertently gave Councilor Garcia the roll call for the actual budget was used for the amendment rather than the amendment itself. I mean, rather than the budget. So I have to rewrite the budget roll call so that we can do that. So I will do that one. Okay. So we have a roll call for the budget. A yes vote would adopt the budget as is. A no vote would defeat the budget.
Mr. President, I'd like to speak on the budget before we vote.
Yep, on the budget, go ahead.
Thank you. So I know that at the budget hearings, I brought this up a couple of times, but I am really concerned about where we are right now after COVID and seeing what's happening across this country. And I feel that this budget doesn't really do anything to address the dire needs of our most vulnerable residents or the professionals who serve our community. I feel almost as if we're like 10 years behind and we need to do some serious catching up. We're in the middle of a pandemic, and yet the Health and Human Service budget is actually being cut. And we're not talking about being creative or figuring out innovative ways to revive it. We're in the middle of a pandemic, and we're seeing budget cuts to some of the most important departments. I want to recognize the life-saving work of the planning department, DPW, but I just feel like our Health and Human Services department, whether we're underfunding them or maybe we're outsourcing too much of the work, I think that we could have seen a little bit more creativity in the budget, particularly a city that just saw the loss of over 150 lives, and I think it's unacceptable. In addition, last week in a school committee meeting, I heard over 12 teachers talk about the racism that exists in our schools, teachers citing that teachers of color have left, citing hostile work environments. Yet when I posed the question about the student resource officer to the superintendent, the response was, I asked her, how much do you spend? She said $138,000 on student resource officers, despite the fact that there's petitions in the community and messages from parents that they don't want to fund this. She said they spent $138,000, and I respond and I say, if we cut that, what would you do with that money? And she said, nothing, because student resource officers work. How do we know they work? What are we using for data? I feel that there's a level of gatekeeping that is happening in this community, in the halls of this political power that we all hold, that is preventing us from moving on into the 21st century. I cannot, will not get behind a budget that is not prioritizing the well-being of all of our residents. I feel like we're not doing enough to listen. We're doing a lot of, this has always worked, so this is what we'll do. And when I was 10 years ago, this is what we did. That's not working anymore. I think that we need to really open up our minds, open up our ears, and listen. We are here to represent the community, but that doesn't mean that we have all the answers, and that's okay. It's okay to listen to folks and get ideas. But for us to sit here and continue to make the mistakes that we've done, it's like if we always do what we've always done, we'll always get what we've always gotten. And where we are right now in this world, we have an opportunity as leaders to really do something better. So if this budget is supposed to be a moral document of a reflection of the voices and needs of this community, I'm concerned that it misses the mark sorely, and I will not be supporting the budget as is.
Anyone else? Councilor Brown.
Thank you, Mr. President. Again, like I said earlier, this budget was like any other budgets that we faced. I mean, again, the pandemic, the screaming challenges that we just had so much before us. But through it all, this budget still did allow us to provide food, shelter, rental assistance. We're still with the budget, taking care of our basic city services and continuing to fund services that the public is asking us to serve. We talked last week about the projected revenue, the estimated, and some of us was concerned about the estimates that we got, but the reality is that this budget still projects that level that we will continue to move forward. A lot of us have said that, we speak to people and they say, how do you do it in Chelsea? You've been hit so hard. You're all over the news, 2,600 cases. How do you do it? We do it with the resilience of the people that we have in City Hall, the people like you and I to sit and act out city managers to make monies available for sometimes reality of millions of dollars for assistance programs like food and shelter at hotels for folks that's in need of those things, that we realize that those things cost money. Those things cost money. During this year, 2020, so many people have lost their lives and lost their jobs. And, this budget today does not afford anyone to lose a job. We still offer hope to every single employee that we have in the city of Chelsea. Despite what happened to other communities, we're still here. We're still trying to balance this budget so you can continue to feed your family, have your home, live in a place where you love, which is Chelsea. And I just think that, a lot more could be done. I honestly think that there's a lot of more money and I agree with Councilor Vito, that we really could have looked at some social issues here. There was none mentioned. I mean, they mentioned tonight, but there was none mentioned at any of the 4 or 5 nights that we had where each and every department had come up. Our human service director came up, we grilled him. At the end of the day, we were like, okay, we like to work with you and do other things. But at the end of that budget session, we told him that, we want you to do more. I mean, does this budget reflect us saying to him that he can do more? No. But still, it's a budget that's brought before us that I think that will help us get through 2021 and continue to work and continue to keep Chelsea afloat. And hopefully next year, even if we can have a middle year budget hearing where we can get before the month of May, when we all have to rush in and 4 nights and figure this all out and make a decision. I'm still reading papers and stuff. I'm still calling colleagues and stuff and saying, what's this on page 14? What's this about the gas tax, the meal tax, the hotel tax? It's not so clear. You really have to be able to read this stuff and have some hours to really get some understanding of it. So, I think it's a fair budget. I think it's not a perfect budget, but I think it's a budget for the challenging times that we just came through. Is enough to get us through this year of 2021. I think the proposals are pretty good, and the financial plan will ensure us that we'll have everything we need for 2021. We have the reserve account. Our city manager has said it many times. It's time to use it. We saved up. You remember our former councilor, Bob Bishop? He was saying, we're saving all this money. We're going to need it one day. Well, this past year, we needed it. And now we should use it and move forward. Thank you.
Anyone else? I'm just going to say a couple of things here. First, I spent a little bit of time looking at the proposed budgets in our surrounding communities just to see what others were doing, give a comparison. And I want to say that first and foremost, I know I tried the city manager and his team a little bit, but I have to on this. In all the years that I've received a budget, this had to be one of the worst presentations in paper that I've ever witnessed to. I've seen budgets in a binder that states the mission of each department, a binder that gives a structural detail of what each department has, number of employees in each department, what each role is, so you get an idea of what it states, mission statements for each department, goals for the following year that they're going to follow, and what that budget's going to do. Not trying to look between three different packets that don't even, some of them don't even have page numbers on them, so you don't even know where you're looking at, so that you can follow the budget, the department, how many employees, and who's getting paid what. None of that. It was a disaster. I would grade you guys, if you presented this report as a professor, I'd give you guys an F from presentation. For trying to go through all of that right there. Absolutely F. That's not something you can even post online for a document trying for the public to go and take a look at. The public would be lost looking at that. And that's the document that's supposed to, just allow our residents to say, okay, where is our money going to? It's supposed to be a statement. Nothing. And I don't want to hear COVID-19. I just don't. You know what? I'm not buying it. Just not. So number one, I just want to say, I hope that next year, this looks a lot better, and maybe you should be going back a few years, to our predecessors, to what they were given and provided, so that not only our council can follow this, but our public can follow this, because this was, quite frankly, unacceptable. Bearing that in mind, I have concerns about, again, while there is cuts and there's a dependence on the free cash to plug in, and we've done this in the past, I have some real concerns about the receipt projections of this, what this budget alludes to. And I want to remind my colleagues that this, despite the fact that we're giving loans to our businesses, rental assistance monies, that somewhere at the end of this, we're supposed to be charging a 2.5% increase on property taxes. That's what this document is going to depend on. And come in October, and come November, we're going to have to look at values and say, hey, it's time to pay the bill on this budget. Now, my caveat is hopefully between now and that time, when I start to see the long list of valuations that the assessor is going to give us, that it comes to a little bit better than what I've seen in the past. Because if it isn't, then I won't be supporting that 2.5 rate increase. And then the city manager is gonna come back here, and he's gonna have to make some cuts. Because we can't continue to be unfair, pass an unfair system. So, again, hopefully next year, we'll all be here, and you heard it here now, that this budget doesn't look like this. That maybe I should send them copies of what other communities have done. Maybe I should send them copies, go to the library and look at what the previous city managers have presented, because this is unacceptable. We deserve better, a public deserves better. That's all I have to say.
Can I say something?
Councilor Coop.
I've been here for a while, and all the time we have budgets and budgets and budgets. And I understand our city needs the budget to operate, our city needs funds to give us the service that we have. But maybe next budget, our city can think of the residents and the tenants that live in our city. And maybe sometimes if we have enough money, they can get a break. And if it's affordable to us, 12 years that I've been here, I always argue about giving the homeowners and tenants a break. It's hard to give them a break right now because the city is in some kind of turmoil with funds or whatever it is. But as the years will follow, maybe the city one day will make it with a certain time of the year for maybe once in a blue moon. If we have a surplus, the homeowners and tenants can reap the benefits of it. You say, how can they reap the benefits of it? By not raising their taxes, leaving them, not lowering them, but giving them a break to make them understand. I've never seen that since I've been here, and we always have a surplus. So all this time we have a surplus. Why can't the people, they give you the surplus, get something in return? I think the people of the city are owed something to them. And it's up to us, the elected officials that are here, to try to give it to them. And there's nothing wrong with trying to give it to them. The city needs money, yes. The city needs money to run. I can understand all that. But through all that, maybe one day in the near future, whoever is here, whoever it is, will lobby even hard to give the homeowners and tenants a fair shake. Not to lower their taxes, but to make them stay equal. That's all I have to say.
Mr. President.
Councilor Garcia.
Thank you, Mr. President. So clearly this is not the most exciting budget to be voting on. And as much as I wish that I could join my fellow colleague on making a symbolic gesture here and taking a stance against a budget that we're really not proud of and that could be better, I have a civic duty of voting for a budget. And unfortunately, we know that there were many departments that in this city have, before COVID, during COVID, have been stellar in responding and in making a concerted effort to improve their services here at City Hall. And I would hate to vote against a budget that will stop the day-to-day operations of the city, as much as I would like to make that symbolic gesture in voting against this, because I agree with my colleague. There are systemic issues that continue to happen in many local governments, many local municipalities. Chelsea is not exempt. It is not the only one. There are so many of them. But reality is, it's also our responsibility as city councilors to present those innovative ideas through amendments and through, as Councilor as well attempted to do, is if you have an idea to make change and have impact, then this was the time to submit those amendments. So we felt short on that. I hope that we move in the right direction. It's not too late for the next budget to move in the right direction and present amendments that may create those cuts in the areas where we believe we need to see improvement. But as also, I'd like to mention what Councilor Brown mentioned, we're not laying anyone off, and we are protecting our city employees in that sense, which other cities do not have that luxury of doing. Is there room for improvement? Absolutely. Is there room for us to bring a little bit of change within the budget and the way we work? Absolutely. And I also agree with my colleague, Councilor Avellaneda, we should demand more. We should definitely be more transparent with our numbers. I personally, when I began my tenure here as a city councilor back in 2016, that was one of the first things I asked for, was to make this information accessible to the public, to make it accessible in visual ways that are easy for our public to understand where their money is going to. I fear us shifting the burden of all the help that we're providing, shifting it to our residents next year when the next fiscal budget comes. So I think that if we approve this budget, once we take that vote, I hope that my colleagues make the effort to start thinking of ways that we can improve the budget next year and make the necessary cuts in the areas or the necessary shifts in the areas of our future budget where we want to see that real impact and that real systemic change. Thank you, Mr. President.
Councilor Taylor.
So a lot's already been said. I just want to say a few things about the budget. I've had to deal with budgets for many years, and also in times of economic hardship. And I thought that this budget did a pretty good job of making cuts. I commend the city manager for the negotiations with the unions. I thought that really helped. And speaking as someone who has 700 employees, and I had to lay off most of them because of the COVID, and my industry has been absolutely destroyed. I'm pretty proud and of this budget that we did not have to lay anyone off. And that is a big deal. I know some people have said that people in the private sector are suffering, like that. But, to save people's jobs and to keep everybody whole, I think that is an important thing, and it needs to be recognized. I agree with Councilor Vidal in one respect, and that is that a larger conversation probably needs to be had about how we're dealing with health and human services. But that's a big conversation, and that's not something that can just be had and then just rush a bunch of money into a budget. So I agree that if that conversation needs to be had, we should have it. I think that we have done very well with working with our partners in the nonprofits that have helped us through all of this. And I think that is a very important aspect. I also think that Chelsea, in a lot of ways, is on the cutting edge. I don't think we're 10 years behind in any respect. I look at the police department and I think that they should be held up, as we don't have a lot of the same problems on the scale that other communities have. And I think that programs like the Chelsea Hub, which the police have enacted, is one of the most important, innovative, and effective programs and something that this city should really be proud of. We have saved so many lives, and it's this type of, collaborative public-private partnerships that we can really, you want to be innovative, you want to think outside the box. This is thinking outside the box, and this is why other communities across the country are adopting programs like this. So I don't think we're 10 years behind. I think we're ahead of the game in a lot of ways. Now, I'm not saying that there's no room for improvement, and I certainly believe in transparency. And I do believe in listening to people that are, have issues with the current system. All that needs to be bound into a larger conversation that I look forward to having in the next year. But as far as those things are concerned with this budget, the city manager and the department heads are in a rock and a hard place here. And it's not easy to come up with this thing and not lay anybody off. That is something that they ought to be commended on. I agree with our council president that the presentation was, it left something to be desired. I found it very difficult to follow along and just try to get, so his point I think is valid. I understand that the COVID, might have impeded those things, but I look forward to a much more organized and succinct presentation next year than this year. So I will be supporting this budget. I think that everything considered, it was a pretty good one, and I'll be voting yes.
Council Brown?
Yeah, I just want to say big thanks to the president. You've been very fair, been very lenient, and given us our outspoken mind a chance to express what we're trying to get across. I want to thank all the finance committee members. I called each and every one of the finance committee members and talked to them about my concerns and asked them about certain things that, as you stated, that I could not read or understand. But with Roy, you helped me get through that, so I appreciate that. I also appreciate when we were having discussion, Mr. President, that neither one of us really tried to persuade each other how we should vote or what we should vote for, but we listened to one another, we shared each other's concerns, and a lot of the concerns was worthy and valid. And at the end of the day, I think that by reaching out to our colleagues, and in my opinion, by reaching out to my colleagues, I was able to get more insight than just really being here and trying to maneuver through all these it's actually four stacks of budget hearings. It's four stacks that you have to actually go to line one for this salary amendment, the levy, all this other stuff. It's four stacks that we really had to place together. You and I, we both agreed that it was horrible. But you really had to spend some time, and as Council Vice President said, it's our civic duty to get into it and figure out what we have to do to share to make sure that the city's able to run and operate. Was it pretty? No. Did it need a lot of work? Yes. Did we really get to the root of it? No. That's a big discussion. That's a discussion I hope that we won't have to wait till next year, but right away we can start trying to make preparations on moving forward. So when the city manager recommends some of these positions again to us, that we'll have a definition of, if that's the position, these are some of the things that we expect. And, not like trial dates and stuff, and find out later on the person will be better at another location. But again, my thoughts is thank you to all my city councilors that returned my phone call. Again, all the finance guys and the president, and also the city manager for returning my phone calls also. Thank you.
Okay.
If I may,
Councilor Robinson.
I mean, I will be supporting the budget. And I think that we, as councilors, as individuals, we have just as much responsibility as the city manager's team in making sure that the budget fits and we develop programs that are related to the community to help improve our community. So we, as councilors, maybe need to step up a little bit at the plate to make sure that these things can get done and share in some of that responsibility. That's all I want to say.
Okay. See a lot of nodding, so I think you have some agreements. I'm now going to call the roll for the adoption of the general fund salaries.
I think Councilor Garcia, I think Janine wanted to say something.
Councilor Amir, no? Okay. Councilor Naomi Zabit.
Yes.
Councilor Judith Garcia.
Yes.
Councilor Todd Taylor.
Yes.
Councilor Giovanni Recupero.
Yes.
Councilor Leo Robinson.
Yes.
Councilor Calvin Brown,
Yes.
Councilor Damali Vidal,
No.
Councilor Melinda Maldonado,
Yes.
Councilor Yamir Rodriguez,
No.
Councilor Roy Avellaneda votes yes. Councilor Enio Lopez.
No.
8 in favor, 3 against, 0 absent. Next item on the agenda is for the Water and Sewer Fund. City of Chelsea Falls salaries for $521,140. Operations and maintenance, $7,065,086. Capital, $1,500,904. A total of $9,087,130. Council Robinson?
Ask for a roll call vote on the adoption.
What is that?
This is the Water Enterprise Fund. A yes vote is to adopt the Water Enterprise portion. Naomi Zabit.
Yes.
Councilor Judith Garcia.
Yes.
Councilor Todd Taylor.
Yes.
Councilor Giovanni Recupero. Councilor Leo Robinson.
Yes.
Councilor Calvin Brown.
Yes.
Councilor Damali Vidal. Okay, absent. Councilor Melinda Maldonado.
Yes.
Councilor Yamir Rodriguez.
Yes.
Councilor Roy Avellaneda says yes. Councilor Enio Lopez. Yes. 10 in favor, 1 absent, none opposed. Now moving on to the sewer portion of we just voted for the water section, now with the sewer. Salaries, $521,140. Operations and maintenance, $10,928,977. Capital, $1,563,857, totaling $13,013,974. Council Robinson, what is the wish?
Roll call vote on the adoption.
Roll call on the Sewer Enterprise Fund. Council Naomi Zabit.
Yes.
Council Judith Garcia.
Yes.
Council Todd Taylor.
Yes.
Council Giovanni Recupero. Council Leo Robinson.
Yes.
Council Calvin Brown.
Yes.
Council Damali Vidal. Council Melinda Maldonado.
Yes.
Council Yamir Rodriguez. Council Roy Avellaneda, yes. Council Enio Lopez.
Yes.
9 in favor, 0 against, 2 absent. The motion carries. We're offering now the general stabilization funds. This is the what regards to appropriation and assessments in the general fund to be financed by the general stabilization funds of the City of Chelsea. Stabilization funds equals to $4,965,819. Council Robinson, what is the wish?
21.
You didn't read the fiscal year, I just wanted to clear the water.
Doesn't state in the order.
But
Fiscal year.
it is for 21.
Yeah, this is to supplement the budget.
Correct.
The fiscal year began July 1st, 20.
Correct, but there was in the order, it was not written in the order, so
Okay.
I don't know if we need to amend that.
Just stated between.
Okay, so the order in regards to the appropriation assessments in the general fund of the 2021 are to be financed by the general stabilization funds of the City of Chelsea as follows. Said amount. What is the wish of the?
Ask for a roll call vote on the adoption.
For a roll call. Council Naomi Zabit.
Yes.
Council Judith Garcia.
Yes.
Council Todd Taylor.
Yes.
Council Giovanni Recupero.
Yes.
Council Leo Robinson.
Yes.
Council Calvin Brown.
Yes.
Council
Yes.
Damali Vidal.
Yes.
Council Melinda Maldonado.
Yes.
Council Yamir Rodriguez.
Yes.
Council Roy Avellaneda votes yes. Council Enio Lopez.
Yes.
11 in favor, 0 absent, 0 opposed.
What was the vote, Mr. President?
We have now moving on to introduced by Council Robinson, In regards to city manager, consider acting expeditiously in advance of community discussions to declare an executive order on racism as a public health crisis. To address structural racism in education, housing, public safety, healthcare, and other areas of society. The first reading was objected. This is the second reading. What is the wish of the council?
I'd ask for a roll call vote on the adoption.
Council Robinson asks for a roll call vote.
No, just briefly, you know, we talk about leadership. Here's an opportunity for us to step forward and do something very meaningful in this community. So I'd be asking public safety officials, the city manager, city solicitor, community members, again, community members, to develop plans to address unconscious bias, systematic racism, including in such discussions the possibility of creating, among other remedies, an office of diversity and inclusion in the city, a permanent task force on racism, and a program for comprehensive and mandatory inherent bias training for all employees.
I have a question.
Councilor Recupero, you have a question?
What do you mean community members? What are community members?
People.
Isn't that everybody in the city?
Yeah, people who live in this community.
But I mean, you specifically say community members. Are there any specific organizations that you want to involve?
Through the chair.
Well, community members means everybody, all organizations, anybody.
That's what I mean.
Anybody
Community
wants
members is anybody in general, right?
I think he made that point clear.
Very clear to me.
Councilor Naomi Zabit. Oh, sorry, hold on,
Yes.
sorry. Councilor Taylor.
So this is an executive order? Or this is
A request for an executive order.
So I would just say this on this, that I don't get the part of it being a public health crisis, but I do think that it's an extremely important issue that needs to be addressed by all members of the community. So, okay. So this is basically just agreeing to what the city manager wants to do as an executive order. What does that actually entail other than just coming together to discuss?
Well, it's the start of dialogue in this community.
Okay, that's.
And it'll incorporate
I can,
all those.
yeah, I'll get on that.
Councilor Vido.
Actually, I think Councilor Zabit was before me.
No, I didn't have anything. I thought we were doing roll call.
Oh, okay. All right. All right. Thank you, Mr. President. I guess I know that one of my colleagues had a question. In terms of public health, the reason why people say that it's a public health crisis is because of racism so deeply rooted in so many of our systems. It affects people's access to food, to medical, to healthcare, housing, education, environmental, criminal justice. So those are all public health issues in case there were any questions. And I am in full support of this. I just didn't want it to be an empty gesture because while other communities have been able to do it, they've been also able to invest resources into the health department. What concerns me is that out of one side of our mouth, we say racism is a public health crisis, and on the other one, we okay a budget that cut our health and human service department by 18%.
I'll now call the roll. Councilor Naomi Zabit.
Yes.
Councilor Judith Garcia.
Yes.
Councilor Todd Taylor.
No.
Councilor Giovanni Recupero.
Yes.
Councilor Leah Robinson.
Yes.
Councilor Calvin Brown.
Yes.
Councilor Damali Vido.
Yes.
Councilor Melinda Maldonado.
Yes.
Councilor Yamir Rodriguez. Yes. Councilor Roy Avellaneda, yes. Councilor Enya Lopez. Yes. 11 in favor, 0 against, 0 absent. That motion carries. We have a order introduced by Councilor Recupero in regards to DBW to fix the broken streetlights throughout the city.
I'd like to adopt under suspension of the no objection like this on.
You may.
A while ago, me and Councilor Lopez asked for this, then there was a pandemic happened and nothing, we never got back to it. But there's a lot of streetlights in our city that are out. And I know the city contracts an outside company to go and find these lights and replace them. And I hope that all of them get fixed sooner or later, maybe sooner than later, because they need to be fixed. So if the city manager and the DPW commissioner can actually go out and fix them and tell us a report that the majority of them are fixed. That's what I'm asking for, is for a report that the city manager instructs the commissioner to give us a report back to us telling us that 90% or 100% of the lights are being addressed and fixed.
Seeing no objection to it being passed on the suspension, we move on. Order request in regards to the city manager give an update of the status of the Pearl Park and Congress Street about the traffic congestion study in that area.
I'd like to adopt on the suspension. If there's no objection, I'd like to speak on it.
Seeing no objection, you have the floor.
We had this conversation before, and I understand that COVID-19 delayed all these things, but that area is a downtown area, and it's very congested all the time. I know that we have spoken before, and the city manager said he was going to do some types of markings on the street to try some sort of form to try to alleviate the situation that's there. I don't know if that's his plan, to go back to it and maybe give us an update when that is going to happen, because the way the situation is now, it's more congested than ever. It's harder and harder for the people that live in that area to go to where they live. So maybe within the near future, when we come back, you can send us an update, if it's okay with you, and you can let us know what is going on and how you're going to address that issue. Thank you.
The next order is an order introduced by Councilor Visionetta in regards to the park grant for the Mace Tot lot. The city owns a parkland located at the Mace Tot lot at 59 Crescent Ave. The renovation and refurbishment of the city's recreational facilities corresponds with the goal of Chelsea's 2017 Open Space and Recreation Plan and advances public health and well-being and quality of life for Chelsea residents. The Mace Tot lot is the sole playground situated in this neighborhood area and it's vital recreational asset for city residents, yet it has not been substantially renovated and it remains in condition and warrants refurbishment. The Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs is offering reimbursable grants to the city to support the preservation and restoration of urban parks through the Parkland Acquisition and Renovations Communities Park Programs 301 CMS 5.000. The city requests to apply for the park grant in the amount of $400,000 for the renovation of the playground, including the new playground, equipment, rubber safety surfacing, water feature, landscape elements, and site furniture and other amenities. The renovation of this facility is projected to cost approximately $750,000 and should the city receive the park grant, the grant will reimburse city 70% up to $400,000 of the total project cost. If awarded, the park grant reimburses the city for design and construction up to the amount of the grant. The city is required by park grant guidelines to set aside the full amount of the project and certified that full funding, including the state share, is available for the project prior to reimbursement. Additionally, park grant requires a site permanently dedicated to open space use, which it presently is, and therefore, by the vote of the City Council, it affirms that the Mace Tot lot is a protected open space in perpetuity under Article 97 of the Massachusetts Constitution, endorses and approves the grant application for the Massachusetts Parkland Acquisition and Renovations for Communities Funds to be prepared by the Department of Planning and Development. If the city is awarded a park grant and for the renovation of Mace Tot lot, the City Council endorses the project for the park funds prepared by the Department of Planning and Development and certifies the city manager's authority to enter into the agreement for receipt of those funds and directs city manager to direct all action necessary to accomplish the project. Chair recognizes District Councilor of Mace Park, Rodriguez. What is the wish of the council? Adopt on a roll call vote?
Yeah, roll call vote. Yeah, adopt on a roll call vote.
Council Rodriguez asked for an adoption on a roll call vote. Council Naomi Zabit.
Yes.
Council Judith Garcia.
Yes.
Council Todd Taylor.
Yes.
Councilor Giovanni Recupero.
Yes.
Councilor Leo Robinson.
Yes.
Council Calvin Brown.
Yes.
Council Damali Vido. Councilor Melinda Maldonado.
Yes.
Councilor Emir Rodriguez.
Yes.
Councilor Roy Avellaneda votes yes. Councilor Enio Lopez.
Yes.
10 in favor, none against, 1 absent. Next order is request that the City Licensing Commission consider reducing the renewal fee for liquor licenses given the impact of COVID-19, sponsored by Councilor Garcia and Councilor Roy Avellaneda.
I make the motion to adopt unanimously under suspension if there are no objections, and may I speak on it, Mr. President?
We have a roll call vote on it?
Yes, roll call.
Objection to the suspension, we're going to a roll call.
Roll call.
Councilor Garcia, you may speak on this.
Thank you, Mr. President. So first and foremost, I want to take a moment to recognize that Councilor Damali Vido did co-sponsor this as well with Councilor Avellaneda. Unfortunately, due to a clerical issue, her name was not placed here, but I know she's been advocating for it as well, along with Councilor Avellaneda. And just for the public and for transparency, this is a request to reduce the liquor license renewal fee. Every establishment that has a liquor license is set up to renew it around November, December timeframe. And I have personally been meeting with my businesses in the downtown who I know they're actually watching right now. And in these meetings throughout this pandemic, I've been meeting with them twice a month, and I'm trying to pick their brains on what ways can we meet them halfway to figure out and provide them the most support that we can as a city to help them within this reopening process and take away a little bit of that financial burden. And as we've seen, we've come up with some pretty cool ideas, like introducing some grants, forgivable loans, grants, whatever you want to call it, to support them in operations, because they did take a huge blow in their finances because of this pandemic and having to be forced to be closed. And one of the ideas that my businesses brought up, this was entirely them, I give them credit, none of us came up with this, it was actually my businesses who said, Judith, it would be very helpful if you reduce the renewal fee for these liquor licenses, because it would provide, considering that, you know, they didn't use their liquor, they weren't selling any liquor throughout the three to 4 months that they were asked to be closed and not have any patrons inside seated with alcohol. So again, it's a reduction, it's not a waiver, and it is a very symbolic way that we can holistically help our businesses succeed, not only by providing the forgivable loans that we're offering, but also providing other methods and really targeting areas where they see the most benefit. So again, this legislation presented, and hopefully the licensing commission votes in favor, comes directly from our businesses here. They are the ones who want this, and there's no more wonderful way of assisting them than listening to their needs and actually presenting legislation that will make that impact. So again, I look forward for the licensing commission to really find it in themselves to provide this much needed financial relief for our businesses here in Chelsea. Thank you.
Councilor Vido, would you like to, for the order to be amended so your name is included?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, yes, can you please amend it so my name could be included? And can you mark me on a yes on the Mace tot lot vote? I had a connection issue, but I didn't mean to be absent for that. My apologies. And can I speak on it just very briefly, Councilor Avellaneda?
Sure.
Thank you. My sister councilor really just captured everything I really wanted to say, but I just wanted to just let it be known that I just wanted to co-sign the idea of people being able to determine what's best for them and us listening and serving as guides in the community. So I'm happy that the business community brought this to their attention and that we empowered them with actually hopefully making it happen. So thank you for that, Councilor Garcia. I think it's just a show of good faith to our business community that is really struggling in these times, as we all are. And so I'm just proud to be a part of this. So thank you.
Okay.
Do you want to speak on it? Mr. President?
No.
Mr. President.
Councilor Recupero.
This vote is for yes, I know, right? One, we're gonna give more license, and no, we won't give no license. We wanna get less license.
No. This is to reduce what businesses are offering. I'm sorry, Mr. President, may I speak on it? So this is, no. Listen to me. So establishments are paying a hefty fee when they renew. They have to pay a lot of money to renew their liquor license. What the businesses are asking is, can we reduce that fee because they were out of business during COVID-19?
They wanna reduce the fee.
Yes, the renewal fee, just for this year. Just for this year.
Okay, now that there's some clarification on Councilor Robinson.
Yeah, I just have some difficulty, and I know we're here to help people, but we're giving people loans. And I think that we're talking about a city budget, we could be in trouble with this or and that. And I think the businesses have a responsibility to be able to, give us something a little bit back here. That we're gonna give them loans and we might forgive them down the road. What does that say to the people who own property here in the city that are paying a tab and don't have an opportunity, other than being a homeowner or living in your home to get the residential discount? I think we need to be fair across the board. And I just have concerns that I won't be supporting the measure.
Okay. Councilor Calvin Brown.
Yes, so there was no mention in what type of reduction. Is it up to the board member to come up with a deduction? For instance, if a license is $300, I mean, what's it? Who comes up with that? How do we get, my question is, how do we get to the deduction? Who comes up with that?
So,
The licensing commission.
the order reads that the licensing commission considered reducing the renewal fee. Now, these are existing businesses that have to pay an annual fee.
Correct, I understand that.
And these fees are thousands of dollars.
Okay.
An annual. And the sponsors are asking the licensing board to look at it and say that maybe they give a reduction, a one-time reduction percentage of the actual normal fee to reflect the fact that many of these businesses were closed for the better part of, a quarter of a year as a way of assisting them to get back on their feet. So it's a discussion that can be had by the licensing board. The public can be invited, will be invited. The licensees will be invited and councilors will be invited. And at the end, if the board votes to do so, then they can give a break, so to speak, on those license fees.
So to answer my question, so we're looking for them to give us a number and percentage, for instance.
Yes.
Okay, that's all right. I just wanted to know, how do we get to that percentage? Okay, whatever that reduction may be. Okay, got it.
For clarification, I'm going to recognize City Solicitor Cheryl Watson.
Normally, a reduction in fee would be a recommendation from the city administration for an increase in fee that the licensing commission would review. We can put before them that the city council would like them to discuss the reduction of fees. So the fees are different. All alcohol versus beer and wine versus liquor package stores. Then they also have renewal fees for the CDs and all this other stuff. What I was saying in the order, you just wanted to be different.
I have a question.
Councilor Recupero.
So, Ms. Watson.
Yes.
So, if we approve and we say to do it, right? The city, no, they can't do it, the licensing commission has to approve it?
You cannot order them, but you can request that they do it.
Which is how the order is presented.
So right now we vote and we say, yes, we want you to do it. We can't do it?
We are voting to ask the licensing board to put this on their agenda to discuss.
Can we vote to just give it to them?
No,
No.
we don't have that jurisdiction.
Or you mean the licensing board is the one that ultimately determines?
Yeah.
Whatever, so we just asking permission to them to see if they can do it.
Yes. It's just a request.
I thought if we voted, we could have gave it to them now.
You're very amended.
This is very symbolic. So you could do
That's
it.
all that is.
I'm now gonna read the roll. Council Naomi Zabit.
Yes.
Council Judith Garcia.
Yes.
Council Todd Taylor.
Yes.
Council Giovanni Recupero.
Yes.
Council Leo Robinson.
No.
Council Calvin Brown.
Yes.
Council Demolavito.
Yes.
Council Melinda Maldonado.
Yes.
Council Yamir Rodriguez.
Yes.
Council Roy Avellaneda, yes. Council Enya Lopez.
Yes.
10 in favor, 1 against, 0 absent. Motion carries. We have, I see at the bottom of my pile, and I apologize for this, but we did have a late communication from the city manager. Due to the timeliness, the order cannot be presented, but the communication can be accepted as a late communication and can be read if there's no objection from a late communication from the city manager.
Did he
Yes,
object?
Council Vido.
I'm not objecting, but I just think that if we're going to start, there, in the past, there's councilors that are submitting orders and we're saying that we're not accepting them because it's late, and the city manager has to be held to that same standard.
He is. This is just a late communication.
I know, but I want us to tighten it up because he shouldn't get special privileges.
No, orders are all under the same guidelines. A late communication, whether it be received on a Friday or Monday, is acceptable, such as a resident who sends an email on Monday morning is considered a late communication because it was after the agenda was posted. So communications are accepted, orders are a different category.
I thought that we had the option. I thought our council rule stated that we vote on it. You have to check with the council to see if we're okay with accepting late communications.
I will. Correct. So there's a late communication from the city manager asking if there's an objection to it being read.
Correct. I'm not objecting to it. I just want us to, moving forward, I just want to make sure that we tighten it up.
So I'm going to read the late communication from the city manager. Dear councilors, I am writing regarding to the expansion of the Blue bike sharing system in Chelsea and request the necessary council action to launch this program. As we mentioned in our FY21 CIP submission, the city of Chelsea is seeking to become a part of the Blue bike sharing system that currently exists in Boston, Everett, and surrounding communities. Over the past 6 months, our Department of Planning and Development, in partnership with the Metropolitan Area Planning Council, MAPC, has crafted a plan for this expansion. Presently, the plan calls for deploying the system at the beginning of August, with an initial setup of 6 bike stations at various locations across the city, containing 36 total bikes. The exact locations for the 6 stations will be determined in consultation with residents and the council over the course of the next month. The launch of the system is proposed to occur as follows. First, MAPC and Lyft, the system's operator, will arrange the donation of bike share equipment for 2 years to the city. The city council must formally accept this donation. Second, the city will contract directly with Lyft to operate and maintain the system. The contract term will be for 2 years, with an option to extend the contract by an additional 4 years. The total cost for the first 2 years is $100,000, which will be fully covered by grant funds. At the conclusion of the initial contract period, the city can decide if it wishes to exercise the 4-year option depending upon the financial circumstances and the success of the program. Because the length of this option is 4 years, the city council's approval is required. For the above reason, I respectfully request that the city council vote to adopt the attached resolution, which both accepts the donation of the bike share equipment and authorizes the execution of the operations and maintenance of the contract. If you have any questions, you may contact Ben Cares, project manager with the Department of Planning and Development. There is an accompanying There is an accompanying resolution, however, it was not entered because it was late.
Move to accept and file a communication under suspension if there are no objections. And then, Mr. President, my question is, so what does that mean if it's late? When are we meeting again before September?
Under the circumstances, if I call a special meeting, we could meet.
But we're done.
Only on-
We're finished our first session. Our first.
We are on break after tonight unless I call a special meeting.
Got it.
So as you may have heard, we are on break until September. We do have a list of subject matters that we have to take up as part of our committee on conference, and I'm working with our assistant Fatima to put that list together and put to schedule the conference meetings. Other than that, unless we have a special meeting for this one particular subject matter or any other thing that may require our attention, we are off on break until September.
Well, we'll be having subcommittees throughout, because I have a subcommittee. Okay, great.
Yes, and also we will have charter review committees, of course.
So, can we?
At this time, I'll ask if there's any announcements.
Yeah, I got an announcement.
Councilor Recupero.
I announced that every city councilor that we go on vacation, so if anybody needs to say that any city councilors, we're always working. Even when we're on vacation, we're working for you, so if you need something, you can call us at any time.
Councilor Garcia.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'll make it brief, and I think you already alluded to it. Just want to remind folks that even though we may be heading out to vacation, we are still having a city charter review. That is next Wednesday at 6 p.m. We are still reviewing charter. We're heading into section 3. Still debating section 2, but we welcome everyone, and you all know the message. If you're just tuning in, we will continue to have these via Facebook Live, via CCTV, Comcast Channel 22. Once we start getting this to our new normal, hopefully we will have all members meet in person, taking all the precautionary measures. But again, I would love the participation of the public in these meetings. I know that my youth is already signing up to start reviewing the charter with us and sending their comments. But again, the meetings are on Wednesdays at 6 p.m. and the public can submit comments by Tuesdays at noon. You can do it via email. You can call in to personally come and give your remarks. Remember to call 617-466-4090.
60.
4060. Thank you, Counselor. So I look forward to seeing members of the public. And one more announcement is that even though we are going on break and we won't be coming back until September, remember that there is a primary coming up on September 1st. So everyone, I am not here to tell you who to vote for, but I am here to tell you to exercise your right to vote. Thank you.
Any other councilors? Councilor Brown.
Sure. Can we just on the last matter? I know Councilor Vidal said something, but what happened to it? Did we just adopt it under suspension or?
The communication was accepted.
Okay. So you just accept the communication?
That is correct.
Okay.
And then he might call a special meeting for the order.
The order was not, the resolution was not entered.
Correct. But you said you might call a special meeting for it.
Correct. Right. Councilor Daniel Lopez.
I just want to say that to the people of Sector 4, that just Councilor Recupero and I, and the people that call fireworks, midnight, 1 in the morning, I will drive them there, and please have some consideration when you do that. And there's children, there's pets, other people. Have some respect, have some consideration for people who work. And also, I want to say something about trash. I see a mess on trash. People, please use the city bell And if you could please put in front of your sidewalk, in front of the stores, there's so much trash in the city. And that's what I want to say, thank you.
Mr. President.
Council Vidal.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to thank the city manager and Mr. Dunn. I can't imagine that the budget was an easy thing to do while we were kind of battling a pandemic. And I know that I'm not a fan of the way it was presented either, but nonetheless, I chalk that up under the pandemic, and I just understand. I don't know for a minute that you guys good. And I also want to make sure that I know we acknowledge DPW, but I feel like planning department, Ben and Alex and Mimi specifically really handle the food distribution. And I don't feel like we talk about that enough, as well as Luli and Kate and the city manager's office. They really were at the front lines of this pandemic. So I just want to make sure that we're just making sure that we're naming all of the people that really showed up to the community and lifting their voices. I want to wish all my colleagues a happy summer. I hope it's clean and disinfected. And I also want to remind the community that we are still in the middle of a pandemic and that we should still exercise, be vigilant and washing our hands and wearing our masks and practicing social distancing, because we're seeing numbers going up in other parts of the country. And I would hate for us to go back to after we've made so much progress. So I just want to make sure, process is good too though, but I just want to thank everybody for their work and just make sure that we keep washing our hands. Thank you.
I know that I want to mention something, and again, I don't want to take thunder away from the earlier resolution and the recognition of the public works and those who did it, but you know, we talk about front lines and we don't talk about, I don't think enough. I know they're getting some bad press right now, but our Chelsea Police Department and our firefighters are walking into homes, you know, they're responding to health cares, and they have to walk in with a mask, and they are literally walking into COVID-19 situations. And we just got to make sure that they're also recognized. We know that a few of them were put on the quarantine. Some of our police officers, some of our firefighters did get contaminated, and it's probably because they were out there, you know, walking into homes and picking people up despite what the situations were. So again, there's so many heroes out there, literally, and we just want to make sure that those frontline people are also recognized.
Yeah, I agree. I was just speaking about the food, but you're absolutely right, as well as our E911 operators. So thank you for reminding me.
Councilor Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I also just want to let the public know we have not forgotten the firecrackers. There's a lot still going on. We have the chief sent out an email to a few councilors, I think maybe all the councilors, in particular, the councilors have been actually calling the chief and trying to figure out what's going on. Their work is intensified. Their work is they're going to see what's going to happen up into the 4th of July. They know people are now getting excited about the fireworks, but we just want residents to be aware and also be respectful of your neighbors. I mean, we're hearing things now, people are exploding firecrackers and fires are taking place out in Utah. A really big bad fire got out of control behind firecrackers. Someone in New York, they shot off firecrackers, a civilian got badly burned. It's really dangerous to the dogs and the animals, and not only the animals, but the people themselves, the veterans, the seniors, people are losing sleep over it. And I know we continue to get calls, we continue to get texts from next door neighbors, but they're out there. They're out there. The chief has given us his word. There are two people that really condensed on trying to solve this issue. And hopefully, as 4th of July goes by, we'll be able to see some kind of some kind of timbering down from the firecrackers. But it's a national issue. It's a statewide issue here in the United States. It's all over. For some reason, people are just expensive for firecrackers, and they're very expensive firecrackers also. So please be aware of your neighbors and think about your neighbors. If you have small ones, fine. But be aware, I mean, they're harmful. Thank you.
Anyone else? Any moments of silence?
No, I do. Joyce Santarelli.
Counselor Robinson?
Joyce Santarelli, longtime Chelsea person, of the dance studio.
Dance studio, yeah.
Oh, yeah, oh my God, God bless her. She's not my daughter.
Counselor Garcia?
The 152 deaths from COVID-19 that unfortunately happened in our city.
Yeah, we had two
Okay.
more up at the captain.
Well, a moment of silence. Thank you all. Enjoy your summer.
Don't leave.
Thank you, be safe.